This
That's good.
conference will now be recorded.
Yep. So here we go, an official welcome to everyone for joining our MLOps Specialization program, the course demo. So please make sure you stay till end of this particular program, okay? So let's get started without wasting much of our time. Here we go. 1 second, folks. Let me just make my arrangements here. So I can see a few people are rising and hands. So please make sure you stay till end of this program. Definitely, I will be opening a Q&A so you can talk to me. That's awesome. Okay. So saying that, here we go. Let's get started. A quick intro about us, right? As a Citron Technologies that I'm talking about. Let me just quickly unmute my camera. So let's see if I can, if you guys can able to see me. Okay, so here we go. Yep, I believe yes, you could able to see me. Yeah. Hey folks, this is Sharath. So I'm a founder and CEO of Citron Technologies as well as a trainer. I mean, just imagine Citron Technologies what we are. So I mean, simple. Anything related to data science, MLOps, right? On a cloud, right? So or maybe on premises that we're talking about. We are the best peoples outside. So please Google and just check what we are, Citron Technologies. So more about us, yeah, you can go ahead and check. So I will be a trainer obviously for the next 2 hours. So I will make sure that you learn MLOps, and I will make sure that you become a creator. Okay, saying that, so let's get started. So I'm going to mute my mic, otherwise you will be having my face everywhere, right? So let's get started. That's awesome. So there is a three solid reasons I said, right, why you should not leave this meeting for the next 2 hours, right? So this demo session will be for the next 2 hours. Please make sure you stay till end of this program. As I mentioned, so in order to know how does your career is going to look like for the next 10 to 15 years in AI, so please make sure you stay till end of this program. So MLOps can be the solid solution for that. So followed by that, we have arranged an awesome demo, right? So how these organizations makes their AI to the production, right? So people talk about AI, but how that come to the production? What kind of automation that we build? To know that, please make sure to end up this program. And more than that, right? So everyone, definitely, there's no doubt about it, including me, including you. We need a better lifestyle, a better a pay scale job. That all we need a right skill, the right career could able to pay the right the amount of salary. So that's where exactly we're looking for AI as a career, right? So AI is an umbrella. Underneath it, a lot of things comes in picture. You can become a data scientist, you can become ML engineer, you can become MLOps engineer, right? So as simple as that. So let's get started. Okay. So these are the three things going to be a highlight of this particular demo. So what we going to revolve around for this for this 2 hours are going to be on these three things. So what is this MLOps is really about, and what it takes to master MLOps, right? So here I'm talking about not to just gain some basics overview of MLOps. I want you guys to be an expert, right? That's why for a reason we call it as MLOps specialization. It's not MLOps basic. So how can you able to learn an MLOps in a 360 degree, right? So then comes, how can you make your career so much powerful and high paid job a better lifestyle, right? That's what exactly we are focusing on, right? So saying that, so let's get started. Okay, here we go, a beautiful picture. So let's get started with that. So I mean, so what are the sessions that we conduct in terms of AI and data science? We start with this beautiful picture like a tradition. Okay, so I would like to make this session more interactive. Here we go. I want you guys to observe this picture and go ahead and try to describe this particular picture in the chat window. So what do you think this picture is about? So what kind of things that you could able to recognize from this picture? Try to describe it. Maybe not a brief description, just go ahead and type something that you can capture from this particular picture. Okay, go ahead, use your chat window. So what do you find in this picture? This looks awesome, right? If I have a place like this, I would like to simply go ahead and spend a time over here. There's no doubt about it. So I would like to sit for the entire day. There's no doubt about it. Okay, here we go. The first command. So Balamugan says it's a dog show. That's awesome. Okay, that's good. So Jai says it's a morning walk with pets. That's awesome. That's good. Let's see what other people says. And yeah, here we go. The commands are just pouring in. So guys exercising. That's awesome. So dogs everywhere. A park. That's awesome, right? So obviously everyone knows this is a beautiful picture of a park. There's no doubt about it. We can see there's a lot of dogs, and even there are different breeds of dogs, right? Isn't it? And you can see there's a lot of trees outside, and so obviously there is a beautiful path where I can walk, and there are men and there is a women everywhere, right? So we know what is this picture is about, and we want to spend a time in a park like this. That's awesome. Yeah, we will do that. So, but that's not my question. The question is not about, so what is this picture is about? Okay, so my question is a bit different. Okay, so let me just reiterate my question here. Okay, the question is simple. How do you know this is a picture of a park? Okay, so who taught you this is how the park looks like? You guys are saying this is a picture of a dog, right? How do you know this is a picture of a dog? How do you validate it? Why can't this be a picture of a cat? So why can't be this a picture of a tiger or a leopard? So how do you know this is a picture of a dog, right? So, and how do you know this is a picture of a man? And how do you know this is a path where you can walk? And how do you know this is a trees, right? So what could be the solid reason, right? But let's try to understand. If I'm go ahead, I'm going to take the same picture. I'm going to I'm going to show the same exact picture to this newborn baby, maybe less than 1 year old, right? So do you think the baby could able to recognize everything that you could able to recognize right now? Probably not, right? It's hard. So baby barely could able to recognize his mother and father, but apart from that, the baby doesn't know anything else. So, but what if I go ahead and display the same picture to this a little bit a grown up kid? Yes, a kid could able to recognize something, right? And for example, let's say if I go ahead and show the same picture to this grown up adult, he can describe beautifully, right? As you guys are doing right now, right? So why? So why is this picture? Why is this description? We are talking about what we call it as AI, an artificial intelligence. Where it starts from us, as simple as that. So we are a biological machines. So we are the best examples of what we call it as AI. So all human beings are trying to do, they're just trying to replicate what we are. They're trying to create an intelligent machines like us, right? So obviously guys, just consider that. So as a newborn baby, we born with an empty brain. So it doesn't mean that it's an empty, but it's an empty of a society, right, that I'm talking about. So let's say, for example, if a baby grows, right? So obviously parents are the best teachers. We started learning things from our parents, right? So for example, we started going for the schools, we started learning from our teachers, we started learning from our books, we make friends, we understand what's a technology, and we understand AI is a future. We get into the AI, right? Obviously, so we know that. So consider that as a human beings, you consume data in many different fashion. Consider that. So let's say as a human beings, you consume a data through our eyes. Visually, you can able to see my picture, you can able to see your screen, you know what is happening in a screen. That's a one form of data you're consuming. You're consuming a data through your ears. You can able to hear the audio. You can able to consume a data through your nose. You can smell things. You can smell how biryani smells like. You know what is our difference between a Hyderabad biryani, Delhi biryani, a Pakistan biryani, whatever it is, right? So you can able to smell a biryani. You consume a data in some fashion, right? And we learn and learn. Let's say, for example, in each and every stage, the knowledge that you gain is keep on improvising, right? So the learning curve exponentially grows up, right? And finally, we expire in one day. But we're not talking about that. That's a topic for a different thing. But we are talking about each and every day we learn something, we eventually get better in that. As a biological machines, you can able to make a decision, you can able to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? That's what exactly machines, AI want to do for us today, right? So simply what human beings are trying to do, the same way we had learned a data, way we could able to make a decisions and predictions for the future. So we want to teach the same exact things to these dumb machines. Yes. So hardly these machines could able to understand zeros or ones, right? So we are trying to teach the same exact things what we have learned. See, consider that similar to way we could able to consume a data in many different ways, right? Still a machine could able to consume a data in many different ways. Okay, let's talk about a simple form of a data. Let's talk about in a simple document. Okay, so let's say I'm going to take a simple document. This can be a CSV document, simple. So let's say this CSV document has around 3 years of old data that I've collected. So it has 30,000 rows in it. So what is this data? This data could be an electricity data that I collected from your home. So consider that I put up some sensors in your home. I collected amount of electricity that you consume, the voltage, the current, the bills that you might have paid for the last 3 years, right? What we call it as an historical data because it's a history, right? So last 3 years. So my goal is pretty much simple. My goal is I want to take this data and I want to teach this data to this machine. Okay. this machine, what's going to happen, it's going to try to understand the pattern from your data. I mean, how you consume a data in spring, how you consume data, I mean, how you consume an electricity in winter, how your electricity consumption looks like in a monsoon, right? So, and it learns a pattern from your data, and then it creates something called machine learning model. So what we call it as a machine learning model, there are different kind of models that we are talking about, right? We are talking about a classical machine learning model, we are talking about large language models today, we are talking about generative AI models. All they are ML models, right? So this ML model is going to be part of final end product. Model is not an end product, but it is going to be part of final end product. So once you have an access to this model, we can able to ask some questions to this model. Maybe I can ask this ML model to make a forecast, a simple thing, but yeah, it really works. Let's say I'm going to ask this ML model to make a forecast for the next 6 months. What will be my electricity bills going to look like? So what will be my first month bill? What's going to be a second and sixth month's bill? So just imagine you can able to predict what's your next 1 year bill is going to look like. Just imagine such kind of a use case. You can able to build it for any corporates. Just imagine how much money they could able to save and how much money that you can able to make. I mean, this is a one simple example, right? But let's say the kind of a problems that you can solve is endless, right? But instead of that, instead of teaching us tabular data like CSV file, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures of a dogs and bunch of pictures of a cats. I'm going to teach a difference between a cat and a dog to my machine, right? And then again I'm going to create a ML model, which is going to be part of final end product. Then I'm going to put a picture. I mean, I'm going to put a live cat. Let's say I have a camera which is attached to my device. I'm going to put a live cat on my camera. So then my machine is going to predict, okay, there's a cat that is standing in front of your camera. So for example, computer vision, what we call anything that we can able to do with pictures and images. Then we talk about NLPs. Then we talk about large language models like chat GPT services that we do have, right? So this is all about what we're calling it as AI today, right? So, but the question is, this is a process of you taking a data, teaching a data to a machine, and we build a ML model. This is a process, but how does this model makes to the production? How does this models comes to your plate? As simple as that. Let's try to understand that. So let's try to understand in a very basic level. So what is a typical workflow of creating a successful machine learning model? So what is the minimal requirements we have, right? So let's start discussing on that. So the minimum requirements for the process of building an ML model, right? So as I mentioned, like a human beings, we consume our data in many different ways. A machine can also consume a data in many different types. Your data can be a format of a picture, isn't it? A JPEG. Your data can be a format of CSV files. It can be a JSON document, a text document. The data can be anything, right? So the first step in a workflow, folks, what we do, we take this raw data, right, which comes from your customers. And the first step in a workflow, what we call it as preparation, a data preparation, right? So what is this data preparation? It's similar to what we do in your kitchen. Yes, as simple as that. So what we do in a kitchen, let's say if you I mean, if you can able to cook a food, I mean, if you want to prepare your favorite recipe of a food, what do? The first step, we go to a market, right? So we go to the market, we start buying some vegetables, ingredients, whatever you need, right? Then we come back to home, we started cleaning these vegetables. We start cleaning the vegetables and we remove unnecessary stuff, right? So because so we need to clean it, right, for preparing. Then we started putting some ingredients and masala and oil. We started preparing our favorite recipe, right? That's what exactly you do it in kitchen, right, for cooking your food. The same thing that we do with the data. See what happens, the real-time data, the raw data that comes from your customer, that comes with a lot of garbages in it. It will have a missing values. Some of the columns would be empty, some of the rows in your data can be empty, right? So, and you might be having something, what we call it as outliers. So what our data engineers or data scientists is someone called, so they will be taking a data, they will be cleaning it, preparing it, and transforming it, similar to what we do in our kitchen, right? So once the data is clean and prepared and clean, then we get into the process, what we call it as experiments. So what is this experiments? So who builds a model here? So data scientist, a person called data scientist is someone who's going to build a model, ML model. So what happens here? The ultimate game, we need to take this data that is clean and prepared, and we want to take this data, teach this data to a machine. Machine understands a pattern. It can produce an ML model. For that, first step, you will be taking an IDEs like Jupyter Notebooks, VS Code. So what is this IDEs? Those are the IDEs where you can able to write a code, a Python, R, JavaScript, whatever it is, right? So why I need to write the code? Simple. You have a data, so you need to take this data. A data is in one location. You need to take this data. You want to teach this data to a machine. So what kind of a machine? You want to use a CPU based machine, you want to use a GPU based machine, some kind of a server in the cloud. Who knows what kind of a machine you need, right? So for that you need to write a code. A code tells where is your data, where which kind of a machine it is, right? So then once we have a code, we started executing this code. So then we take our data, we started teaching the data to a machine. So what we call it as learning, right? So machine learns the data, then it creates what we call it as a machine learning model, right? So consider that in the process of you producing an ML model, you want to test it, right? So for example, let's say you're teaching a kid goes to a school, he learns a science, and let's say you want to evaluate the particular kid is really performing good or not. So what do? You do an examination, right? Similar to that, once you have a model that is ready, we do have something called a test data, the data that we keep aside for testing your model. Then we test your model with that test data, and you analyze the results. If you're really good at, I mean, if your model has produced a really good quality results, that's good. You're really okay to take this model and go ahead and deploy it to the production. Okay. So but consider that throughout the life cycle, right? So throughout the life cycle, you're not going to produce only one model, you're going to produce multiple models. Just imagine it's like a software. So throughout the life cycle of any software, do you think we will be producing only one version of a software? Are we going to produce multiple versions? Definitely, right? Multiple versions. As simple as that. Throughout the life cycle, we will be producing multiple versions of your ML models. And how do I store and manage these ML models, right? So this is where what we call it as model registries comes into the picture. So model registries are dedicated tools that we can able to use it for versioning your ML models here. So there are different kind of model registries that you could able to use. So if I want to name one, I would say MLflow. It's a pretty much famous tool that you need to know. Otherwise, every cloud like AWS or Azure or GCP, they have their own model registries. Okay, that's good. So we have a best model. Let's say I have a first version of a model. Good. So now I want to take this model. I want to go ahead and deploy this to the production. So what's the steps? So consider that if you want to deploy a model to the production, there are different scenarios is being followed by every organization, folks. See, consider that each and every organization's requirements are different. Some organizations, they might use AWS, Azure, GCP. They want to deploy it on a premises. They want to use tools like Dockers or Kubernetes or something like that, right? So maybe you want to Dockerize your model, you want to deploy to the Docker platform or maybe a cloud. So possibilities are endless, right? So consider that here I'm taking a model, the version 1, and I'm trying to Dockerize it. I'm trying to deploy it on a Docker platform. Okay. So that's it. The model got deployed. What is the next step? Then comes creating a client applications. So then comes your app developers, maybe a front-end developers, someone who builds a beautiful web applications and an Android app like this. So some kind of a UI that we can able to use it to interact with an ML model. So that's how the complete end-to-end might look like. But this is a typical, I mean, this is a basic workflow, how it look like. Okay. But how does a production automation is going to look like? Let's talk about that. So we do understand. So what is machine learning is all about, right? Machine learning is all about study of an algorithm and a mathematical model. So basically that your computers, the servers in a cloud that uses to progressively improve on a specific task. Simple. It's all about teaching complex mathematical models, right, to your machine. So once machine understands that, it produces a model, and we can ask this model some questions, right, to predict a future. So saying that, here comes our data scientist is someone who builds this model. So he uses programming languages like Python or R or Go. I mean, he writes a program and he will be doing this stuff, right? So, but as an MLOps professionals, do you build model? Definitely not, right? That we will discuss later. But the question is still unanswered. So what is MLOps? We haven't really started with that. So what is really the MLOps is all about? Let's talk about that. Before we talking about MLOps, it's time to understand, is this a right time for you to making your career shift, right? Is this your right time to getting into the MLOps journey, our AI journey? Do we have a right opportunity? This number says that. Yes, so this is the data which we captured from AWS AI Conclave, which happened in Bangalore. What we listened from an experts, a leads in a world of AI. Okay, so let's try to understand this. This number would also make more sense for you. So I'm talking about what we call it as a current state of machine learning. So what do you mean by current state of machine learning? Otherwise we can talk about, so what is the current state of machine learning across the globe? So what's every organizations are doing today right now, right? So if you understand that, you'll come to know whether we have a good market to getting into the MLOps or not. Okay, so what AWS says, let's say when we go for last decade, let's say let's go to last 10 years ago, maybe let's do a quick time travel and let's go to the last 10 years. Okay, let's try to understand. So last 10 years ago, I'm talking about maybe early 2010. Before that, maybe somewhere around 2000 2008 or something like that, right? So every organizations, if you see, they had a lot of data sitting in their organization, but they are doing nothing with that data. That's the time they started hiring a data engineers or a data scientist, someone who can able to build a model for them. See, the focus for the last 10 years for every organization is to just build a model, but productionization is not happening at all. So that's the game. So last 10 years ago, everyone is trying to build a model because they don't know how to make it to the production, what kind of a money they're going to make with that, right? And if we talk about today, I'm talking about beginning of 2023 till today, already you will see that 53% of organizations across the globe who has a POCs just building a models, now they are trying to making it to the production. And it takes an average 9 months for any organizations to reach that particular position. And by end of this year itself, right, so we are already in the end of year, right? 75% of organizations will start, I'm talking about, they will start shifting their ML models into production. So okay, that's good, they are going for the production. What's there for you is a question. So what makes an AI into the production is the question. So if you want to bring your AI to the production, you need some kind of a automation. That's where MLOps comes into the picture. So what is really MLOps is all about? So MLOps is a set of practice for the collaboration and communication between various different stakeholders who are part of building AI. So who are the people who will be part of building an AI? Not one, not two, there are many. So let's say we start from a data analyst and data engineers, right? So they play with data, they bring the data to the organization, they build data pipelines, right? Then comes a data scientist. So data scientist is someone who takes the data from our data engineers and he builds what we call it as ML model. He does this all the high level programming. So then comes ML engineer. ML engineers, we call it as deployment peoples. They take a model from data scientists, they go ahead and deploy it. Then comes our MLOps engineers. So MLOps engineers are someone who make sure the infrastructure is available for your AI team to do this. They want to do data preparation, model training, model deployment, all this stuff. MLOps engineers are someone who builds a complete automation end to end. So MLOps engineers are someone who maintains and deploys an infrastructure, for example, right? So that's where MLOps engineers comes into picture. There are different positions in MLOps. You can become a lead in MLOps, lead engineer, MLOps architect. Yes, there are architect kind of positions, MLOps specialist kind of a roles, for example, right? So as we are talking about a collaboration and communication between all of them, what we call it as MLOps, right? So MLOps is all about implementing an automation to deliver your machine learning models or deep learning models. I'm talking about deep learning models, which is nothing but I'm talking about your large language models. It can be your Gen AI models or class, any kind of a classical machine learning models to the production. So when we are trying to implement such kind of an automations, right, so it can able to increase the quality of any organization and how they simplify the management process of how we build, train, evaluate and deploy your ML models to production. So MLOps is all about building an automation, right? Good. Saying that, let's try to go ahead and let's try to understand the high level view of this MLOps. So MLOps motivation, what we call. So MLOps motivation, it's nothing but the discipline that sits intersection between various different domains, right? So we do have DevOps, machine learning, and data engineering. So the intersection of all these three domains, what we call it as MLOps basically. So what we call it as machine learning operations basically. So let's say this intersection of practices, when they are coming together, it really drives a value in how you build, deliver, and manage your machine learning models. So consider that in your organization or an organization that you're going to work tomorrow, you want to implement such kind of a practices, you need to have a people's process and right technology in place to make it happen, right? So that's what exactly what we're going to learn, the tools, the process, and people's like you, how you can able to be part of it, right? Okay, let's talk about some of the challenges that we do have traditionally, right? So obviously, there's no doubt about it. In the process of creating a machine learning workflows, we ran into a lot of different challenges. I mean, we know that ML model building involves multiple steps usually. I mean, data preparation, it can be a model training or model deployment steps. Okay, so but in a reality, folks, not only we have these steps, there's really a lot goes into stitching things together. So I mean, we want to stitch a data preparation with model training, a model training with model deployment. There's a lot goes into it. Let's try to decode one by one. Okay, so let's get started with data preparation. As we discussed already, data preparation is like a cooking, right? We take a data, so I mean, we take a raw data and eventually we split this data into training data, test data, or maybe an evaluation data set. We split it into three different types or two different types sometimes. Okay, so what we do in a data preparation step, so we take a raw data and we split it, right? So what we do in a model training step, it's all about taking a data and teaching a data to a machine. That's correct, but there are some additional steps inside your model training. So consider that whether you are doing a single model training or probably you might be doing a hyperparameter optimization. See, we are talking about a data science. See, what we call it as, when data science is an experiment. So what do you mean by experiment? Experiment is not something that you do only once. Experiment, that is something that we do again and again. That's why it is called experiment, right? So all our data scientists, what they will be doing is an experiment. So they will be trying to iterate and train multiple models to come up with the best version of a model. That's what exactly we call it as hyperparameter tuning. So consider that throughout this particular journey and throughout this life cycle, they will be producing a multiple different versions of models, because throughout the life cycle we won't be sticking to only one version. So consider that you might have version 1, version 2, version 3, etc. Okay, so we know that model training is an experiment. So now let's talk about a model deployment. Okay, now version 3 is good. I like that. So if the quality is good, for example. So now I want to take this version 3 of your ML model and you want to go ahead and deploy it to the production. See what happens in a production, what kind of a strategy that we follow in the model deployment process. So in your model deployment, you might have only one step in a workflow, or it could have multiple tasks underneath it. For example, you don't want to deploy your ML model directly to the production. See what happens. Before that, I want to take this model, I want to deploy it to something called staging environment. See, practically what happens, folks, once you have this model, let's say I have a version 3 of this model, before I'm going ahead and deploying this model to production, I deploy it to something called, what I call it as, staging environment. So what is this staging environment? The staging environment is an exact copy of a production, but there's no interconnection between them. So why I deploy this version 3 of this model to staging environment? Because the staging environment is only accessible by your internal team. Maybe I will say data scientist or senior data scientist, because they are the one who builds a model. Because I have deployed my ML model to staging environment, because I want to do some further testing. I just want to see how my model is going to work in production, but I cannot deploy to the production. I cannot take that risk because your users will face some downtime, some issues, right? So that's why I deploy the model to staging environment. My data scientist, senior data scientists, they do a further testing. And if they are really satisfied with the results that is produced, so then we go ahead and take this model, then we go ahead and deploy this model to the production, the same version of a model. That's how it's going to work. But I want some additional control in it. Okay, so what I do, instead of I'm going and automatically deploying a model to a staging and production, in between that, I want some approval process. So what do you mean by approval process? Right? So let's say, for example, if I want to deploy my ML model, right? So to a staging environment or to my production environment. So maybe here I want to come and click on a button which says approval, because before you're approving, you can go ahead and verify the model that you're trying to deploy to the staging and to the production. So who does this? Maybe a senior data scientist, someone who is responsible for that. So he go ahead and check the quality of a model and he go ahead and deploys a model to the production. So what we're talking about, manual approval process. So as I mentioned, so there are a lot of different steps here. So a lot of dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides, let's say, iteration across the life cycle. And more important than this is also to provide an end-to-end traceability to track everything that's happening in your infrastructure. So you need to monitor what's happening in your data preparation, model training, model deployment, post deployment, and you have a complete infrastructure for that. So So, I mean, as I mentioned, these steps can be complicated and challenging, right? So let's talk about further steps, right? And let's try to understand even better. So there's a one more term that we keep on using it. So when we talk about MLOps as a term, so we also refer to something called DevOps, right? So probably there might be a lot of people who might be joining here, who might be also coming from various different backgrounds, right? Okay, let's try to understand this. Let's try to understand DevOps. So DevOps is again an automation practice that we use in a traditional software industry, right? So DevOps is a practice that we use in order to deliver a newer version of our models to the production. Some people's they might say, okay, DevOps and MLOps is same, but definitely not. DevOps and MLOps are different, but there are some traditional tools that we use in DevOps. We will be using it in MLOps. There are some relations here, but so, I mean, the CI/CD practices or source versioning practices, right, are exactly same. I mean, so the challenges that we discussed so far, what are the challenges that we do have in operationalizing machine learning models, has some common things when we compare with DevOps also. Like as I mentioned, CI/CD tools that we use already in a DevOps, source and version control practices that we do already in DevOps, they are going to be common in MLOps also. So that's where it could be an added advantage if you are a DevOps engineer, someone who is also looking for transforming into MLOps. This could be a easy piece of cake, I would say, because you're already coming from a DevOps background. Okay, that's good. Stories apart, but let's try to understand MLOps with a very sweet and simple story. Okay, are you ready for a story? Okay, I'm going to just give a quick story to understand this MLOps. Okay, so let's try. I mean, let's go to year 2020. Okay, let's do a time travel again. Let's go to the year 2020. Okay, simple. There is a data scientist in a 2020. He is building an ML model for theater owners. Okay, so I mean, he is building an ML model to make a prediction saying that how many tickets the owner is going to make us sales. I mean, how much money the theater owner is going to make. So that model is going to make a predictions for that. So, but consider that this data scientist has built a model. The model is good. That's awesome. But this data scientist and assured a client this model is going to perfectly work fine for the next 3 years in a production. There's no problem with that. So this is the assurance which is given by a data scientist. But what happened after deploying this model to the production? But let's consider that where the very important point here, this data scientist has not implemented any kind of an automation. No automation at all. He has prepared a model and deployed it manually, and he assured this model is going to work fine for completely 3 years, but that didn't. So model just failed in 3 months itself. So let's try to understand, right? Let's try to understand and analyze the situations here. Why this model got failed in just 3 months itself? So you know what happened in year 2020, isn't it? Right. So that's the time the world has been hit by COVID. Right. So once COVID came to the market, so no one went to theaters. I mean, we people started gradually reducing to going for theaters, right? Day by day. Obviously, we started stop watching movies in a theaters, right? Then at the COVID lockdown, we didn't go for theaters at all. But there's a one difference. We started watching more movies in COVID, but we didn't go for theaters. How? Because of OTTs. You know that OTTs have skyrocketed at that particular time, and there are new OTTs also born at that particular time. So we started subscribing to all the OTTs, right? We can able to watch the movie from home, and even after COVID today, right, in a year 2024, I would say there might be a small number of people who might be not going for theaters regularly, because you know that we have OTTs. If I wait for next 30 days, I can watch the same movie in a theater. So this is a story, but what is the story? How it is related to MLOps or AI? At end of the day, your customers are your data, right? So here the data scientist is building a model to predict your customer behavior. I mean he's building an ML model to predict how many tickets they're going to sell, but he didn't implemented any kind of monitoring tools in order to understand this customer behavior, because the customers are going for theaters now. They have started gradually going for theaters, for example, right? So he couldn't able to monitor that because he don't have any model monitoring tools implemented. Because in case if he has any model monitoring tools implemented, he could able to came to know that. So technically we call it as data drift. It's nothing but changes in your customer behavior, right? So this is the one side of a story why the model has been failed. But there's another side of a story. Let's go to another side. Let's talk about your data first. Data is a lifeblood for your AI because the entire AI industry relies on data. If an organization doesn't have a data and access to the data or future access to the data, there's no point of talking about AI, MLOps, or anything, right? So, but let's consider the same use case. Your customer behavior has been changed a couple of times before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. So literally there are three different behaviors. That means you have a three different versions of your data. So when we talk about AI industry, your data will have versions. So what kind of a tool that you're going to use it in order to manage these different versions of data? Can we use GitHub for that? You might have heard about GitHub. So it's a place where we store and version a code. Definitely no, you cannot. Data can be in terabytes and petabytes. You cannot store it in tools like GitHub. So that's where a dedicated tools comes into the picture for tracking and versioning a data. We call it as data versioning tools. If I want to name one, I will call it as DVC, which stands for data version control. When we talk about Azure ML Studio, they have their own tool for versioning a data. Similarly, in AWS, they have one. Vertex AI in GCP, they have their one. Right? So then comes, let's talk about the source code versioning tools. Consider that here your data scientist and even MLOps engineers, they write a lot of script. When I'm talking about script, don't get afraid. I'm not talking about high-end programming in Python. That will be done by your data scientist. But when it comes to MLOps engineers, they will be taking care of a code for infrastructure, the pipelines. It can be a JSON code. It can be ML script. I'm not talking about a code at all. It's just a human readable documents, right? So yes. So, and all this code has to be versioned somewhere. You know that. Let's say if you are a software developer, someone who writes the code, tell me how many times the code that you have written has been changed. Maybe 1,000 times, maybe more than that. Who knows, right? So this is where source code versioning tools like GitHub, something on AWS, something on Azure. They have Azure repos, Bitbucket. So there are different code versioning tools that comes into picture. He could have used it, but data this person didn't use it. That's why the model got also failed. So then comes model artifacts and model versioning. See, as I mentioned, throughout the life cycle of any AI industry, they don't stick to one version of a model. They might produce different versions of models. So what is the right kind of a tool that we can able to use in order to store, version your ML models? We cannot again use code repositories for this. So this is where dedicated tools comes into the picture. We call it as model registries. If I want to name one, I will say MLflow. So MLflow is a open source tool that you can able to use it for free today to version your ML models. But MLflow is not the only universal tool. AWS has SageMaker, they have their own model registry. Azure AML, they have own. Vertex AI and GCP, they have their own. Okay, so this could be a simple understanding of what kind of a tools that we do have. But I'm going to also provide you a flavors of tools that we do have here. Okay, saying that, let's get into the next step, right? The number two, what we need to learn here, what it takes to master MLOps, what it takes to specialize in MLOps. That's a question. Okay, let's say how many peoples that you're really interested in applying for lead positions in MLOps, someone who want to get started with an AI industry as an ML engineer or an MLOps engineer. Okay, so let's try to understand you guys much better here. Okay, so probably you guys are coming from various different IT backgrounds. You might be a software engineer, you might be a DevOps engineer, so you might be a data scientist, ML engineer. Okay, so please use your chat window. Let me try to understand. Before I'm going ahead, I'm talking about how to master this MLOps. Go ahead and mention if you are a working professional, what kind of a position that you hold, whether you are a data scientist, ML engineer, DevOps engineer, whether you are a student. Please go ahead and describe this in a chat window before we getting started with the point number two, how to master MLOps. So here we go. Like I can see the messages are pouring in. Asif says he's a lead. He's in a lead position. Software engineer, software developer. Vijay says a team leader. You can just specify whether you are you are a lead, but lead in what? Team leader. Vijay says team leader in DevOps, MLOps. Data scientist. Where? So Ramesh says is in a cloud ops. That's awesome. So then comes Shaurabh says is a data scientist. So then we have Parth says software engineer. That's awesome. Alfine says is a AI engineer. Kamal says data analyst. Vikas is a let's see, DevOps engineer. That's awesome. Shubham says data associate. That's awesome. So Deepanshu says he's an AI hacker. That's awesome. So yeah, so a lot of varieties of peoples that we do have. I believe others could also see that, right? So I can see we have data scientists also, the AI engineers, a lot of AI engineers. So Kiran is an AI engineer, Abdul a team leader, cloud solution architect. So yeah, that's awesome. So Deep is a DevOps engineer, senior associate, automation engineer, Abhishek. Yeah, that's awesome. So there's a lot of varieties of roles that we do have here, right? Yeah, perfect. So can we get started right now? So if those people who didn't mention that, go ahead and mention that in a chat window. So let's go ahead and let's talk about so what it takes to master MLOps, first of all, right? So in order to understand what it takes to master MLOps, let's get into the next slide. Let's try to understand the MLOps components and let's try to understand the complete workflow, what it takes to master MLOps and how does the MLOps end to end would look like. Okay. So here we go. So MLOps components. So MLOps components are going to look like this, folks. I mean, every organization they will be starting with a use case discovery. They should have an access to the use case. They should have an access to let's say enough data, right? And they need to have an access to a data in a future also. They need to make sure that they can able to harvest the data, right? So once we have a right use case, we have a data engineering team who does a data engineering, get the data, build data pipelines, all this stuff. Then we build a machine learning pipelines. So where we build an automation. So once we have a data, then we build an automation for building these models automatically. So once we have a models which is built in an automated way, then we take these models and we go ahead and deploy these models to the production in an automated way again. And then comes we implement monitoring tools in order to monitor the complete production. I mean, we need to monitor the complete infrastructure as well as the models that you're deployed so far. Let's say if I want to dive deep into each and every scenarios, let's get started with the feasibility study, the use case identification, all those stuff, right? So the first we'd be starting from understanding the business, the kind of a problem that we need to solve. We do use case identification. So data understanding. So whether let's say what kind of a data, what kind of a problems that we can solve. So they do all the feasibility study, right? The first part, this part is all about identifying whether we can able to solve some problem with the data that we do have in an organizations, right? So once we have that, then comes a data preparation, right? The step where we take a data, we clean it. Then comes learning about an algorithm. So what is this algorithms? Algorithms are softwares like ML frameworks like TensorFlow, Apache MXNet, PyTorch. So this will be handled by our data scientist. He picks a right kind of an algorithm that we can able to use it to teach this data to a machine. So then comes the process of we go ahead and build an ML models, right? And as I mentioned, a data science is an experiment. You cannot produce the best quality ML model in a one shot. So you do an experiment again and again, a data scientist, and he produces the best version of a model. So how do you know the model that you have produced is fit to be deployed in a production? That's where the model evaluation comes into the picture, right? So this is where we test and extract a lot of different metrics out of it. So consider that how do you evaluate a student who go for a school based on his progress, based on the results from his exam, right? Let's say if he has scored more than 60%, I would say he's a good student, right? If he is scoring less than 60%, I would say it's a bad student. In the same way, we have a metrics that we can able to use in order to measure the best quality model here. Okay. So then comes model serving. So now we have a model. Now we need to take it and go ahead and deploy it to the production, right? So this is where again the automations also comes into picture. We have an automation in the process of building this complete model. Then again, we have an automation in the process of going ahead and deploying your ML model to production. So consider that I take a model, I want to deploy it to various different platforms. Who knows? I want to deploy it to the Dockers, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, right? So I do use an automation for that. I go ahead and deploy that to the production. Then we keep on operating it. So then I implement my model monitoring tools. I started learning a lessons from it. So I started learning how my customer data looks like, how it changes, and based on that I learn the lessons. I keep on optimize it. So what do you mean by optimize? Maybe once in every 6 months I take a new data of my customer, I build a new model, right? That's how the things work. So saying that, let's try to get some very deep insight about the world of MLOps here. Okay, so what today every organizations are achieving to do, that's what exactly I'm trying to teach you guys. So what we are talking about, the automated ML pipelines versus a CI/CD ML pipelines. So what do you mean by that? So the traditional way of building machine learning models, right? I mean, we take a data, prepare a data. I mean, and then we started teaching a data to a machine, what we call it as model training. Then we have a model, we go ahead and deploy it, right? This is a traditional way of building a model. But today, every organization want to move from there to completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines. So what is this completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines? Okay, so let's get started. This is the term that we regularly use in the AI industry, someone who is trying to implement automation. We call it as MLOps maturity level. So what do you mean by MLOps maturity level? See, what happens, folks, not every organization on a day one, they implement complete automation. See, every organization, they focus on ML model building exercise. That's what exactly they're doing for last 10 years. That's what exactly the data said, right? So last 10 years ago, everyone is building a models. They have a models right now, but now they want to start implementing an automation. So we call it as MLOps maturity level. So consider that every organization in a level 0, they don't have any automation. So once they go to level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So level 4 is the highest level of automation that you can able to implement today. So level 1, that's where the automation starts, right? So doesn't matter, each and every organization, they have a different requirements in how they implement automation. So they want to go for level 1, level 2, level 3. Our high level automation is level 4. So the architecture that you're currently looking at, it's a level 4 architecture. Level 4 workflow it is. So what do you mean by level 4? Level 4, what we call it as an automated retraining pipelines. So what do you mean by automated retraining pipelines? Everything is automated here. So consider that, what is a basic workflow? We take a data, we prepare it, teach it, then we have a model, then we go ahead and deploy it, right? So here everything is automated. So consider that we'll be getting started with the ML project identification again. So we know that organizations will have a use case. We don't want to talk much about that. So here, let's get started with the data first. So consider that we already discussed your data will definitely have different versions. Your data will change tomorrow. So this is where we started implementing data version control tools, tools that we use it for versioning your data. Good. Followed by that, then comes the next step in a workflow is data pre-processing. And we want to automate a data pre-processing. We don't want our data scientists, someone who want to manually run a code to build this model, right? So here comes our data engineers or data scientists. They write a data engineering code, and we know that the code that you write will definitely change. That's why we integrate code repositories here. It can be GitHub, something on AWS, it can be Azure repos, anything where we can store and version your code. And then comes in the process of you building an ML model, a data scientist would have been written a code over there, and we want to run this code in an automated way. So again, this code will also change. We want to also version this code in a code repositories. Then comes the next step in a workflow is model training. We want to take this data, we start teaching this data automatically. So this is where integration of feature stores, what we call it as, comes in picture. So what is this feature stores? So feature stores are basically a schema repositories. They are not databases. We don't store a data there. So then what is this feature stores as? So this feature stores will have a features that is needed to train your ML model. For example, let's say we want to train an ML model to predict an electricity bills. So what are the features plays very important role? The voltage, the current, the bills that you might have paid for the last 3 years, maybe the amount of power that you have consumed, right? So these are the features. So consider that your feature stores can have a versions of your features. So consider that together voltage and current and bill, this can be a version 1 of my feature. Together voltage, current, bill and power, this can be a version 2 of my feature. So what we have ultimately in a feature store is a features, the descriptions, the data types of that particular features. So with the schema in a feature store, with the data, we fetch the right kind of data, then we started training an ML model. See what happens next. Once you have an ML model, we produce model artifacts, and this model artifacts has to be stored in some kind of a storage repository, but we cannot go ahead and store it in a GitHub. That's where model registries comes into the picture. So model registries, as we discussed, they are the dedicated tools where we can go ahead and register your ML models, right? So if I want to name one, I mentioned MLflow or something on SageMaker, something on Azure Machine Learning Studio, you can able to use it. So yeah, we go ahead and version your ML models to model registry. So then Now we need to take a best version of a model. Maybe I have version 1, 2, 3. Version 3 is the latest one. I want to take the version 3 of this model. Automatically, I want to go ahead and deploy it to the production, right? I want to go ahead and integrate it. So consider that I want to integrate and deploy it. Maybe you want to deploy to Docker, Kubernetes, and many different options, right? So consider that we deploy it in some kind of a virtual machine, a real-time endpoint, what we call. So then comes operation. We keep on operating it on production. Then comes model monitoring tools. So we started keeping monitoring your ML models. So what we call it as a traceability and end-to-end traceability. Consider that you have this complete infrastructure. You have an infrastructure for your data pre-processing, model training, CI/CD pipelines, where you build an automation, and all those tools that we need, right? Feature stores, model registries. The complete infrastructure has to be monitored, including your ML models, right? So then comes an automated quality gates here. So what is this automated quality gates? You have an automated quality gates at the time of deployment. You have an automated quality gates at the time of data preparation also. So what is this automated quality gates? Every organization, if they want to deploy their AI to the production, they have some kind of a benchmarks. So consider that, let's say, a data scientist is training a regression model, right? So all the data scientist relies on a metrics to decide whether it's a best model. Can we go ahead and deploy the model to production? So for example, we stick to a matrix called MSC. Doesn't matter what is MSC is. MSC stands for mean square error. It's a kind of a matrix our data scientist will stick to deploy this model to production. So consider that if my MSC score is less than or equal to 7, right? This is the benchmark. If this is true, right? If this is true, I go ahead and register my ML model to model registry. If it is false, I won't register my model to model registry at all. So that's how the quality gate works. In the same way, you can also have automated quality gates at the side of a data pre-processing also. Let's say if your data is not clean and prepared, your pipelines will stop in that particular stage itself, right? So this is what it takes to build a level 4 architecture projects basically. So in this particular program, so we will be building at least one level 4 project in every cloud and open source tools. So we'll talk about that one in detail. So saying that, so you know that you guys described, right? So you guys are coming from various different backgrounds. You might be a software architect, cloud architect. So you can be an architect, DevOps engineer, anyone, right? You have your role here. So let's try to understand the different roles involved in MLOps and more. So consider that single person definitely cannot build this entire solution by itself, right? So developing a successful machine learning project involves varieties of expertise and requires extreme collaboration, right? So for example, these roles are definitely related to the companies, how they want to frame it, right? The names can be different. What kind of a skills they're looking forward is basically what we are really interested in, right? So it can be a data analyst, data engineers, data scientist, or anyone, right? So consider that a data analyst is someone who works closely with a business team, and so basically what he will be doing, he will be driving insights from the user data, right? So you will be using a range of tools like data visualization tools, like Power BI, a Tableau, a SQL, or Excel sheets for that particular reason. So then data analyst also plays a very important role at the side of monitoring your complete infrastructure in your operations. It can be monitoring your ML models and such. So then comes our data engineers. Data engineers make sure they have an infrastructure to collect, transform, pre-process their data. So our data engineers will be working with ETL tools, Spark, Hadoop. They will be working with, let's say, data versioning tools that we discussed, feature stores that we discussed. Then comes our dear data scientist. So obviously, a data scientist is someone who builds an ML model, which is going to be part of final end product. So he will be using Python, as I mentioned, writing loads of Python to build this model, as well as he will be working with model registries, data versioning tools, feature stores, model deployment tools, etc. So then comes research or applied scientist, for example, right? So who is this research or applied scientist? You don't see this role in every company, especially organizations who are working in a cutting edge technologies. You see this role. So for example, they will be developing a new algorithms which can be part of a final end product, right? So Then comes ML engineers or DevOps engineers, we call, right? So in ML industry, we call it as let's say ML engineers sometimes. So not DevOps engineers. We don't use that name here. So okay. So what we do? So ML engineers are basically, we call it as deployment peoples. What they do, they work closely with a data scientist, and they take a model that is built by them. They go ahead and deploy it. So then comes, you can be a developer, right? So for example, you can be a developer, someone who want to create the final client side application, right? You can be a cloud engineer, a cloud architect, someone who will be working along with your team to deploy the infrastructure, for example, right? Then comes an ML engineers, right? So ML engineers, it can be the role that you can be also part of. So MLOps engineers, what they do, so MLOps engineers are someone who builds this complete automation. We need this pipeline, right? The pipeline will be built by them. And let's say if you're looking for a lead positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead architect, specialist kind of roles, you will be also taking care of designing the architecture, deploying the infrastructure, all those stuff, right? So yeah, this could be the possible roles where you can be part of, and especially based on your experience. Maybe DevOps engineers, so I would recommend you to go for ML engineers. Or anyone, let's say if you're a data scientist, still you need an ML ops. But consider that you're coming from any other backgrounds, like you might be a software developer, a Java developer, you might be a software tester. ML ops engineer is something that would really work. We'll discuss that in detail later. Okay, saying that, so do you want to get a flavors of different tools that's outside in the market for MLOps? Different tools for MLOps? Yes, let's try to get into that. So in this different flavors of tools that I'm talking about, I didn't put all those tools across this globe, but try to, in order to understand the different categories of tools that we use throughout this journey, the tools that we need for data versioning, experiment tracking, code versioning, model registration, model monitoring, etc. Right? So let's get into that. So we do understand the process of we building a models, right? So all we do, we take a data, right? Then we do data exploration. It's all about taking a data, cleaning and preparing it. Then comes the next workflow is taking a data and started teaching a data to a machine. So which we call it as model training and evaluation. Then once the model is ready, finally we go ahead and deploy this ML model to the production. So this is the traditional step. If you want to implement an automation on top of it, right? So you want to put some automation wrapper on top of it. So this could be the different flavors of tools that we might use. Like let's get started with the development IDEs here. So development IDEs are basically an IDE where your data scientist, data engineer, someone who's going to write the code, or even an MLOps engineer, they will be writing an infrastructure code, maybe the ML scripts, JSON documents, or something like that. So it can be a Jupyter notebooks, a VS Code, or Spider, anything, right? IDEs can be different. So then comes a code versioning tools. Obviously, we discussed about the importance of versioning a source code, right? Your code will definitely change. There are different kind of code versioning tools are available. It can be GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. So then comes some of the tools related to our data scientists. For example, data labeling tools. Our data scientists will start labeling a data. So for that, we do have a different tools. For example, AWS has something called ground truth, right? So then comes data exploration and data visualization tools. Again, these tools are specific to our data scientists. So data exploration and visualization is very important because as a human beings, we are a visual beings. We see visually, we understand that, right? So our data scientists, they will be using a different kind of data visualization tools. It can be Matplotlib, Seaborn, Pandas, etc. for that. Then comes for feature engineering. So AI is all about features, right? So then comes here, we use a feature engineering tools. It can be sklearn, or it can be, let's say, completely a no code tools like feature tools, or you want to use your own open source tool like Feast for that particular reason. Then comes another set of tools for our data scientist is model training. So for example, model trainings here, we are talking about algorithms, the kind of an ML frameworks you can use. So starting from sklearn, PyTorch, it can be TensorFlow, XGBoost, etc. He can use different algorithms for that reason. Okay, now you're going to use these algorithms to build a model, but now you want to make a quick POC, a proof of concept, just to check whether it's working or not. For that, you can go ahead and deploy these models into Jupyter notebooks or Streamlit, etc. Right? So followed by that, then comes model debugging and visualization tools, right? So where you want to debug and monitor the tools, there are some monitoring tools here like TensorBoard, weights and biases, etc. for monitoring purposes. And our data scientist, they will be doing hyperparameter optimization. As I mentioned, data science is an experiment. For that, they will be using different hyperparameters, different SDKs that's available in the cloud, like Keras and Keras tuner, etc. Right. So then comes experiment tracking tools, the tools that are common for data scientists and also for ML ops engineers. For example, you want to track these experiments. You want to decide what is the best performing model. So we can use tools like MLflow, which is the best tool that's outside the market, or maybe commercial tools like Neptune.ai. So this slide also has a commercial tools, like it's a paid subscription based tools also. Then comes model packing. So consider that you want to pack this model and you want to go ahead and deploy this model to the production. So there are various different ways you can able to pack your ML model. You can able to pack your ML model in a form of MLflow, TensorFlow, or you want to try to deploy your ML models on cloud like SageMaker in AWS or Azure ML, or you want to deploy it on open source tools like Kubeflow, right? So there are different techniques and tools. And then comes model serving. Model serving is all about model deployment. So where are you going to deploy a model? It can be anywhere, right? You want to deploy it on a clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, or you want to put it on your premises itself. So they have their own tools. Like here is a logo of SageMaker, but all the clouds to be included. And we have other commercial tools like Bento ML also. Saying that, let's talk about the workflow orchestration tools, where you can build an automation tools, again specific to our MLOps engineers. So we can able to use range of different workflow orchestration tools. It can be Apache Airflow or Kubeflow, ZenML. So a lot of open source tools are commercial tools like Olahai. Are cloud platforms, they have their own tools. SageMaker Studio, we call, they have their own orchestration tools similar to Azure ML and Vertex AI. And if you're looking for various different data versioning tools, here we go. I did mention about DVC, but DVC is not only the one, but there are a lot of other tools like Git large files, or you can also use commercial tools like Olahai. Then comes model registries. We discussed about dedicated tools for versioning your ML models to model registries, where we can version it. So pretty much a famous tool, it can be MLflow. And you can also use other tools like weights and biases, Olahai, which is commercial one. And let's say you need a tools for monitoring your ML models, which is deployed to the production. I would name, there are pretty much famous open source tool, I would say evidently AI, but there are a lot of other tools. But here I mentioned Seldon, Fiddler, or Vitra example. Every cloud, they have their own SDKs that you can able to use it for model monitoring. Finally, we discussed about feature stores. It's a dedicated repositories where we store and version your features. So Feast is a pretty much famous open source one. Or every cloud, SageMaker or Azure ML or Vertex AI, they have their own tool. Or if you want to go for commercial one, you can go for Tekton. So this is the different flavors of tools that is outside, that is available in the market today. But depends on an organization. There are, I mean, based on their requirement, they opt for a different tool, right? Okay, saying that, let's try to understand the key features of this MLOps tools. Like if you want to become a specialist in MLOps, like the specialists are basically, they make sure that they pick the tool here, right? So architects, specialists, kind of a peoples. So how do you pick the tool? So it can be open source tool that you're looking for, or cloud source tools that you're looking for. So we know that open source tools they're often free, right? They are free to use. And they can be easily integrated with your MLOps tools. There is no doubt about it. But what happens, the only difficulty is with the open source tools, if you have a very few developers who have a good knowledge on that, integration could be a bit difficult, right? Then can be a platform versus a specific tool. Consider that you want to go for a commercial tools versus a cloud-based tools. See, as I mentioned, cloud today offers everything that is needed for you for building this complete automation, right? SageMaker, Azure ML, or Vertex AI. But apart from that, apart from open source tools also, there are commercial players. You can pay a subscription, a monthly subscription. You can start using their platform. They have everything in a one single platform. So whether you're going for platform tools or specific tools, it's up to the organization requirements. Then comes the kind of a tool that you're going to pick for your organization. Does that has model and production environment monitoring tools? We discussed about the importance of monitoring, right? Monitoring your ML models that is deployed in a production, and you need to monitor your complete infrastructure too. So making sure that your bugs are documented and addressed in the meantime, or maybe if you have any security and compliances concerns, has to be also addressed. So then comes the kind of a tool that you're going to pick. It can be AWS based tool or Azure or GCP or open source. Does that offers model templating and cataloging? So what do you mean by model templating and cataloging? So MLOps, all it works in the way of templating and cataloging it. So what do you mean by templating here? See, consider that here we are here to understand how to build an automation to deliver your AI to the production. Consider that you become a specialist in MLOps. Now you have built a project for a one client. Okay, so consider that you put all your efforts, you have built your pipelines for them. But tomorrow you're not going to work with the same project. You're going to work with the multiple projects. But the question is, are you going to reinvent a wheel again and again? Definitely not, right? That's where templates comes into the picture. So templates are something where we have everything. So, and just making some few changes in this particular template, you can use the same template to build an automation to any users, any clients that you do have basically. So that's where templating and cataloging comes into picture. So then comes, we are talking about an automation. See, we don't want to run, we don't want to build a models manually here. We don't want to run a code for data preparation, model training, evaluation, and deployment. We want to automate everything. The kind of a tools that you're using, does it offers a complete automation? Can you do data preparation, training, deployment in an automated way? Then comes a pipeline management can be a more important thing. Consider that throughout this journey of building automation to deliver your AI to the production, there are a lot of stakeholders comes into the picture. So there might be a data engineers, for example, it can be data scientist, ML engineers, MLOps engineers. Some are senior folks comes into the picture also, right? So consider that now the models are getting trained. If model training has failed, we need to notify a data scientist. Here we go, your model has failed, you need to just go ahead and fix it, right? We need to throw an alert. Similarly for ML engineers or data engineers or also MLOps engineers. So the kind of a tools that you're looking for, does has a proper pipeline management? Can you able to trigger an automated triggers and updates if something goes wrong in your pipelines? So then comes finally collaboration and communication. So MLOps is all about collaboration and communication, right? So making sure that you have a proper communication within your team, and you document your commands, the questions. Or you integrate project management tools like Jira, right? Are you integrating communication tools like Slack, etc., right? So that's where we are. So saying that, let's try to understand what cloud offers, right? Because cloud is everything, because every organization today they are moving into the cloud, there is no doubt about it. So we are talking about MLOps on cloud. We are talking about three leading cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Obviously, why cloud? Because especially in these cloud platforms, these three leading cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, or maybe GCP, they occupy almost everything in this market, right? They are the major players in the market. So all you need to know about these three cloud platforms. Maybe as of right now, we don't have to worry about other clouds like Alibaba, Oracle, etc., right? So in this particular program, in our MLOps specialization program, we get to cover all the three leading cloud platforms. We do cover anything related to DevOps or MLOps on AWS or Azure or GCP, but not limited to the cloud. What happens, folks? Today, if you're going to say that, few people say that I just want to learn AWS only. But if you only want to use AWS, but I have seen an organizations who use AWS, but still they use open source tools. They use Dockers. They might be using Kubernetes within AWS. What about that, right? So I have seen an organizations who run their DevOps pipelines on Azure, but they deploy their models on AWS. So today an organization uses a multi-cloud and open source tools. So this program is not limited to the cloud. We do also cover on open source tools like Dockers, Kubernetes, ML, lot of tools. Let's take a look one by one. Okay, like what are the Git based tools that so that you need to be really aware about to become a specialist in MLOps? So starting from understanding the complete Git, how Git works, working with Git workflows, followed by that using code repositories like GitHub, Azure repos, or Bitbucket, or any third party repositories that we are talking about, right? Because who knows, your organization want to use GitHub or maybe Azure repos, right? Then comes understanding CI/CD, what we call it as continuous integration and continuous deployment. So CI/CD is traditionally part of what we call it as DevOps, folks. Okay, so as I mentioned, CI/CD is a practice that we use in traditional software industry to deliver new version of a software to production. If you see any software that keeps on getting updated, what's the story behind this? That's where the DevOps automation comes into the picture, right? So here in this particular program, so obviously to getting into MLOps, understanding CI/CD could be the base, right? So we'll be getting and understanding how the CI/CD practices works, right? So let's try to understand quickly, right? Simple example how the CI/CD pipelines work. So here is a simple workflow. So consider that there is a DevOps engineer who want to deliver a software application to the production. So here comes our developer. So our developer is making some changes to the code that is in PC, and he is pushing the code to a code repositories like GitHub or something like that. So basically he's committing the code. See what happens, we are talking about automation, there's no manual work. So automatically the trigger will triggered, and it will try to understand there is a new code has been updated. It will automatically pick the new version of a code that has been pushed by your developer, and it will start building your applications automatically. So consider that there's a Java developer who has built a Java application. Now we build it and we want to create a jar files, for example, a final package, right, that we want to go ahead and deploy it. So maybe here we have an ML model and we want to dockerize this ML model. I want to create a Docker image that I can able to use it to go ahead and deploy to the containers. So there are different strategies, right? So automatically your build process will get triggered. And we are talking about pipeline management. If a build process get failed or passed, we need to notify the particular DevOps engineer. So then comes, if your build process is done, then comes the next step in a workflow is running a test. So if you want to deploy a newer version of a software to the production, you need to test it, right? You need to test and you need to ensure that software is working perfectly, right? And again, we notify if a software testing failed or passed, right? So followed by that, once all the test is done, finally we take an app and we go ahead and deploy that to the production wherever you want, right? A simple example would help you to understand even much better. So consider that there is an e-commerce website. We'll talk about amazon.com, amazon.in itself. Let's say you want to buy some new gifts, maybe clothes for a Diwali, right? So what do? We always go ahead and add to the cart and we go ahead and hit on a pay now button, right? Pay now button. So but consider that currently in a production, your pay now button in a color of green. But we know that green is not so much attractive. Red is so much attractive. A lot of customers are giving a feedback saying that we need a red color button. It's a simple example anyway, right? So based on considering a feedback, so your organization decided to change the color. So here comes a developer who is going ahead and changing the color of a button from green to red. But what's happening, the game is he is not going ahead and deploying this new feature, the color of a button that he has changed, to production. So initially, so we have let's say here is our DevOps setup. We have a DevOps setup in AWS. We call it as code pipelines. Initially, your developer, he will be pushing the code to a branch called dev. See, once the code is available, automatically the build process will trigger. That's what exactly we discussed previously, right? So automatically we started building your software. Once the software is built, we produce an artifact, a final package that we can take and go ahead and deploy it. So then comes in a deployment step, we deploy this app to a web server, right? So we go ahead and deploy your application to your dev environment, and you can able to see that the button color has been changed to green to red in a dev environment. As I mentioned, you can call it as dev or you can also call it as staging. So once the button has been deployed to the dev environment, here comes your internal team. So this app, the app that you deployed in a dev environment, it is only accessible for internal team. You come and do further testing here. You check the functionality of this button. You check it whether I can click it, whether the button is working or not. If you are satisfied, okay, if the button is working, so then you go ahead and deploy the same button to the production. That's how it's going to work. That's how the same things also going to work in MLOps pipelines also. This is how the simple workflow would look like. So here comes your developer. So or maybe a data scientist, maybe an MLOps engineer, right? Someone is making some changes to the script and he is pushing the script to a code repository. It can be any kind of a code repository. So the first step in a workflow, so will be started doing a feature engineering. So basically we started taking a data, start cleaning it, preparing it. Then the next step in a workflow, we take this clean data and we started building an ML model. And consider that we might produce the first version of a ML model. And here comes, you need to take a decision. The model is built, but whether it's a fit model, it's a good, can we go ahead and deploy to the production? This is where you evaluate a model. Maybe I calculate a metrics called MSC. My MSC score is 4.5. That's the metrics, that's a score. So then comes a condition step, as I mentioned. A condition step is basically where we have a benchmark that has to satisfy. My benchmark is this: if my MSC score that I calculated is less than or equal to 7, if it is true, this will go ahead and register your first version of a model to model registry. So mine is 4.5. Yes, 4.5 is less than or equal to 7. This is satisfied. It will go ahead and register the first version of a model to your model registry. If this condition didn't satisfy, it won't register your model to model registry. So then comes a further automation. So here I have a first version of a model in a model registry. Now I'm going to use my build tools. I want to take this model, I want to Dockerize it. So then I want to go ahead and deploy to the Docker platform. So Docker hosting, model hosting platform. Similarly, here I deploy the first version of a model to a dev environment. So where your internal data science, a senior data scientist comes and checks a model. If they are satisfied with that, then they approve. Then the same version of a model will go ahead and gets deployed to your production. So that's how the ML pipelines workflow is going to look like actually, right? Similarly, so we are talking about MLOps, but how it's going to be different in delivering your Gen AI models or large language models, right? There's no difference. MLOps and LLM ops, they have a common tools. LLM ops we call, like how does an LLM ops pipelines is going to look like? There's no much difference. So LLM ops that I'm talking about, it's just an extension of MLOps. Everything that you do have in LLM ops is MLOps. So consider that we do have a same step. The first step in a workflow, we take a data, we started doing data preparation and versioning, all those stuff would be same. So then we do something called supervised fine tuning, right? So because we are talking about large language models, we cannot build our own large language model from scratch, right? That's a different ball game, right? If you want to build your own large language model, what we call it as machine learning, we do deep learning. But here we are talking about taking a fine tuned models from Meta or AI21 Labs, Hugging Face, or Stability AI. We want to take our own data, we want to fine tune it, right? And we produce our own version of a model. Consider that I produce the first version of a model. I use model artifacts, model registries to go ahead and register our ML model. Once I have a first version of a model, again I execute my pipeline, I build it and go ahead and deploy this large language model to the production. So it's MLOps. But what is different here is prompt engineering and responsible AI. So this is the two things would be different. So what is this prompt engineering? You know what is prompt is. Let's say if you go to chat GPT, what you do prompting, you go ahead and ask your question. That's what exactly we call it as a prompt. Then what is this responsible AI? You know that in the world of Gen AI that we are talking about, so the Gen AI could be misused by a user. So consider that today, by using generative AI tools, you can do a lot of offensive work. You can ask a generative AI to generate some offensive content. Like I can input some text, I want this to generate some offensive pictures. It can do, right? But this is where responsible AI comes into the picture. So when a user inputs is prompt, a responsible AI can able to filter it. So it could able to understand whether the user is trying to generate an offensive content or not. So if it's generating an offensive content, it throws an error saying we can't help you, right? So in the same way, the output that is also produced by your generative AI could be offensive, and this also to be filtered, and this could be also filtered by your responsible AI. So that's where responsible AI comes to the picture. Okay, saying that, let's talk about the different flavors of CI/CD tools that we will be covering throughout this particular program with hands-on. So we'll be covering DevOps, that is CI/CD, how to use DevOps for MLOps. It's not DevOps that you want to become a DevOps engineer again. How to use DevOps for MLOps. We do cover the complete DevOps tools on top of AWS, like understanding AWS code pipelines, code build, code deploy, etc. Understanding complete Azure DevOps suite with hands-on projects, understanding how to get started with Azure pipelines, repos, plans, boards, etc. Not limited to cloud-based tools, we do also cover open source tools like GitHub Actions and Jenkins too. And we do also cover DevOps tools on top of GCP, understanding cloud build, cloud run, cloud deploy, etc. Right? But we know that cloud is not just a only destination. We do have always a lot of open source tools. So what if your organization definitely want to use Dockers and Kubernetes? So we do cover Dockers completely from the scratch, Kubernetes completely from the scratch with a lot of hands-on. Not just Dockers and Kubernetes, we do cover how to create a production Kubernetes clusters on top of AWS, we call it as EKS, on top of Azure, we call it as AKS, on top of GCP, we call it as GKE, which we call it as Google Kubernetes Engine. And then comes the different flavors of open source tools that you will be learning in our program with an hands-on project. So starting from data versioning tools, we'll be covering DVC with hands-on understanding how to start versioning your data, putting it at the cloud, on premises, etc. Understanding Git large files, understanding feature stores, getting started with the open source feature stores like Feast. Then comes a workflow orchestration tools that we will be covering, starting from Kubeflow. Okay, there's a story behind a Kubeflow. Do you use Spotify? I use Spotify. Definitely, I love listening to music. And do you love how Spotify recommends a music? You know, Spotify uses Kubeflow till date for their ML pipelines. Yes. So, and otherwise, we'll be also covering other orchestration tools like Apache Airflows and ML, Metaflow, etc. Our model registries like MLflow. Yes, we do get to cover from the scratch. Then comes infrastructure as a code, especially for MLOps engineers, someone who want to deploy the infrastructure. We also cover Terraform for MLOps. Then comes covering a pretty much famous tool that's outside in the market for model monitoring, Evidently AI. Not limited to open source tools, we need to understand the cloud-based MLOps services where you can become a really expert, a specialist. So we will be covering the major tools which makes a lot of sound in a job market, like SageMaker Studio in AWS, Azure ML Studio in Azure, Vertex AI in GCP. We will be using these tools to build level 4 architecture that I'm talking about in all these clouds. So followed by that, we'll be covering model monitoring SDKs on all the clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Not limited to open source tools or cloud based tools, will be also touch upon the commercial tools. So commercial tools are not really important, but we are talking about to become a specialist in MLOps. We also go through this and we'll be also providing a demos on this commercial tools also, like Isgazio, Volahai, Tecton, HubSworks, etc. Then comes end of a story, post deployment challenges. So once your model is deployed to the production, the story never ends. Then comes the post deployment challenges. The actual story starts after that. So we're talking about post deployment challenges, the challenges that is faced by your software engineers, the challenges that is faced by ML engineers, challenges that we do have in deploying your models to edge devices, etc. So that's how it's going to look like, right? Saying that, now we are going somewhere, right? Now you could able to understand what's really the MLOps is all about. So having that same interest in mind, why don't we get into the quick demo that we have built on top of AWS? Okay. Obviously, there are level 4 project. This is an example of a level 4 architecture project, but I cannot, in this 2 hours demo, I cannot provide you a demo of, or maybe the hands-on of all the clouds. That's where we have a program. So quickly, let's get into this demo session, demo right now. So please make sure you stay till end of this program. So right now we are in a number 2, understanding how to become a specialist. Still, we have to discuss how you can able to make a very powerful career in AI industry into MLOps, right? That comes the next step. So now we'll be getting into the AWS demo. So here we go. So probably I believe you could able to see my screen. So officially, welcome to Amazon SageMaker Studio. So Amazon SageMaker Studio. So this is the best, and again a leading end-to-end ML tool that's outside in the market. So I have built a complete end-to-end ML pipelines on top of it. So let me just quickly show you, right? Towards left side navigation panel, I need to go to a deployments and the projects. And you can see I have a couple of projects. The project that is currently running, it's called AWS MLOps October. So this is a level 4 architecture project. It has integrated with everything: code repositories, CI/CD pipelines, model registries, model deployment tools, automated retraining. Okay, so you can able to see that the first option here that you do have a code repositories. So I'm using AWS code commit here, so which is inbuilt code commit repository in AWS, but you can use GitHub or you can use Bitbucket, etc. So there are 2 repositories. One repository I have a script for model building, in another repository I have a script for model deployment basically. If I go to pipelines, this is where you can see a one pipeline that I do have. If I open this pipeline, you'll see something called executions. So what is this execution? So pipeline execution it is. Let's say if you can see this is a table. In this table, you can see only one entry, right? So if this pipeline runs once, let's say I have one execution. If I have one execution, it produces one version of a model. If I have another execution in this table, it will produce second version. If I have another one, it will produce third version. So that's how it goes on. So automatically. So I have one execution so far. If I go inside this execution, this is how it looks like. This is what exactly we are talking about, an orchestration, a step-by-step approach. So what kind of a problem that we are solving here? So basically, I'm training an abalone model. So what do you mean by abalone? So if you are a seafood lover, I mean, if you're a non-vegetarian, probably you might have know about abalones already. So abalone is some kind of a sea snail. There is a meat in it. You can able to eat it. So what the kind of a model that I have trained here within automation, it's all about predicting an age of an abalone, right? So depending on the age of an abalone, the price is decided in a market. That's how we are helping the farmers to harvest these abalones. Okay, so all I have the automation to build this ML model to predict an age of an abalone. You can use the same exact workflow to build any model, whether it is a classical machine learning models, deep learning models, or you want to fine tune your large language models also. So the first step in a workflow is pre-processing an abalone data. So I'm taking this data that is cleaned and prepared by a data engineer. So I will do this cleaning and preparing work here. So then once my data preparation is done, then comes my model training step. So what I do in my model training step, right? So this is where I take a data from my data pre-processing step. I started training an ML model. So this is where my first version of a model will get ready. But yes, it's a first version of a model, but still I don't know whether it's a good model. Can I go ahead and deploy this to the production or not? So this is where a model evaluation step comes into the picture. So what we do in a model evaluation, in a model evaluation step, so we take the model that is trained by my model training block, the first version of a model, right? So then consider that here we take the test data that we kept aside for testing your ML model, for example, right? Yeah. So then we started evaluating your ML model here. So here we calculate what we call it as this MSE score, basically, right? So mean square error. So the kind of a metrics my data scientist will be relying on in order to decide whether it's the best model, can we go ahead and deploy this to the production or not, right? So followed by that, finally we have what we call it as a condition step. I did discuss about condition step. This is where I take a decision. If my MSE score is lesser than or equal to 7, if that condition satisfies, my model will go ahead and register this model to model registry. So this is what exactly the model registry that you're taking a look. Can we go ahead and take a look, because my model is registered to a model registry? Can we take a look how this model looks like right now? Yeah, here we go. So let's go to models. Towards left side navigation panel, you can see something called models. This is called model registry in SageMaker. I have a lot of different model groups. This is the latest one that I do have. If I expand that, you can see this is where I have a model registry. I have a first version of a model that got registered here, but it says pending model approval. Let's go to the version 1. But I said I'm not going to deploy this model automatically to the production because I'm a senior data scientist. For example, I want to go ahead and cross verify whether it is a best model. Can I go ahead and deploy this ML model to model registry or not over here, right? Yeah. So here as a data scientist, I will go ahead and check, okay, the quality of a model. Okay, all good if I'm satisfied with that. So here you can see I have a deployment option. So here in a deployment option, I have an option to approve this ML model if I like, or if I don't like, I will go ahead and reject this ML model. Right now, I don't want to reject it. I will simply go ahead and hit approve. And here I will mention a further things. Okay, I would say all okay, all test okay. I might do further testing, all those stuff. And I will finally click on this save button in order to decide. So now I want to go ahead and deploy this ML model to staging environment. I'm not deploying my ML model to production so far. I'm actually deploying my ML model to a staging environment that I'm talking about. Okay, so now my model is getting deployed to a staging environment. But if I go to this endpoint section towards left side navigation panel, so this is where you can able to check the status of the model that is getting deployed to the staging environment. But so far it is not getting displayed. It will take some time. Okay, so let's wait for this model to be getting deployed, and then we will come back to the screen. Then you will see the model that is deployed, and I will also show you how do I invoke a model. I mean, how do I make a predictions from it, right? So in the meantime, let's go back to our slides. Okay, here we go. So obviously right now we are talking about a demo, and let's get into the most awaiting part in this entire program, the career opportunities in MLOps.
Okay, folks, so let's get started. Obviously, every one of you folks are here, obviously, to make the best, the powerful career that's outside in the market, right? Obviously, what we are talking about, getting into AI industry is the ultimate solution for you. I mean, so we are talking about your future into AI, or maybe your career into, let's say, for the next 10 to 15 years, how it's going to be, what kind of a positions that you can look into. So consider that here you folks might be joining from various different roles. So consider that you might be a data engineer, you might be a data scientist, you might be an ML engineer, or you might be coming from any kind of a cloud background, you might be coming from a DevOps engineering background. So you might be a software tester, you might be a manual tester, right? Or you might be coming from some kind of a management related roles in a IT career. So but the question is, how can you able to get into the AI industry through MLOps is a question. That's what exactly we're going to discuss in this third step. So let's get started. It's going to be interesting. So yes, you can be joining from any kind of an IT background. Yes, you can able to become an MLOps engineer. So usually, the participants, they used to ask this particular question. So I mean, in order to get into the MLOps related job roles, do I need to be a data scientist? Do I need to know data science? Or do I need to have a expertise in Python programming? Let me just answer all these questions. Okay, so let's try to understand who can be part of MLOps here, why you should learn MLOps. So before I go ahead and mention everything, so here is the ultimate thing why everyone is looking for a shift in a different job. Let's say it can be MLOps or anything, right? Obviously, in order to break free from the stagnation. So what I'm talking about is stagnation. So probably you are working in a career where you never see any growth, where you never see something that you learn new every day, for an example, right? So obviously, are you looking for breaking from the stagnation, and so would you like to let's say elevate your career in a, let's say what we're talking about, so multiply your salaries. We are talking about, so let's say how you can able to double or triple your salaries, especially you're getting into AI industry. Let me validate that these numbers might look crazy for you, like doubling or tripling, how does works? Yes, the story of our participants says the right answer for you. Okay, so let's say for an example, and again, you might be coming from, let's say, various different backgrounds. You might be having a 5 years of experience. You might be having an 8 or 10 or 15 years of experience. Can you able to make your career into AI industry through MLOps? Yes. So consider that, let's say we are talking about peoples who want to get started with an MLOps. Let's say you might be a beginner, you can able to get started with an MLOps as an MLOps engineer, or consider that you can able to start working as a lead position, someone who has let's say greater than let's say a 7 or 8 plus years of experience. You can look for a lead positions in MLOps, or consider that the most powerful career would be again working as an MLOps architect or specialist kind of a roles basically. So you can be any kind of a software engineer today. You can transform into MLOps. There's no need for a data science positions, but there's no need for you to know data science here. So let's see what are the peoples that how you can able to transform into, let's say MLOps. So consider that, are you a data scientist? Yes, you can become an MLOps engineer. Are you a data engineer, a data analyst? Are you coming from a research or applied scientist backgrounds? Are you an ML engineer? Are you a DevOps engineer? And again, for a DevOps engineers, there is an added advantage here, because as a DevOps engineer, you're already coming from an automation background. So you do understand, obviously, how to deliver any kind of a software to the production, right? You do understand CI/CD, you do understand let's say how to work with the source version control tools and etc. So that can be an added advantage. Are you an aspiring MLOps professional or enthusiast to learn MLOps? Are you a machine learning professional who want to learn how to deploy your machine learning models to the production? Or are you someone who is learning Docker, Kubernetes, or do you have some experience in clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, or DVC, or let's say ML further I'm talking about? You could be the perfect person where you can able to transform your job into MLOps. So then comes, you can be any individual who is interested in getting into the AI industry. You could be the best person who can able to get inside MLOps actually, right? So that's how it's going to work. Okay, so now let me just address this particular question. So consider that when we're talking about as an MLOps engineer, so you'd be ultimately focusing on building an automation to deliver any kind of a machine learning models to the production. So you're not the data scientist. You don't build the model. So consider that data scientist is someone who go ahead and builds the model. He writes a lot of Python code and he builds the model. And once the model is handed over to MLOps engineer, he would be taking care of building it, testing it, and delivering the model to the production. So there is no need for you to learn a data science to become an MLOps engineer. And again, usually people ask this question, so do I need to have a Python expertise to get into MLOps? Here is an answer. There is no need for a Python expertise to get into MLOps. If you have a basics of Python, that would really help. Okay, let me just answer this question in a different way. Consider that a data scientist knocks my door and he asks the question, Sharad, do I need, let's say in order to become an MLOps engineer, do I need to have an expertise in Python? For a data scientist, I would say, yes, you're a data scientist. You definitely need to have an expertise in data science. But consider you might be a DevOps engineer. Let's say you might be coming from data engineering, cloud engineer, you might be a cloud architect. So let's say if you are looking for transforming into MLOps, so definitely you need to have some basics of Python, because at the end of the day, MLOps is all about collaborative work between other team. So let me put it in even a different way. Consider that you might be a DevOps engineer, for example, someone who is working and building an automation in a software industry. But DevOps engineer comes, as a DevOps engineer, you'd be closely working with a software engineer. But you can never say, I have no idea what my software engineer is doing, what kind of a code he is writing, what kind of a framework that he is using. As a DevOps engineer, you need to have sufficient idea, right? So then only you can able to take that software, build it and test it and deliver it to the production. So MLOps works in the same exact way. You'd be collaborating with data engineers, data scientists, ML engineers, and you'll be building an automation to deliver the models to the production. In order to work with them, so you need to have some basics of Python basically. And here we go. Let me just answer this question. So consider that few folks, especially few DevOps engineers, they come and ask this particular question. They say that, Sharath, I don't have much Python experience. How do I get started in this particular program? So, I mean, this is a very common question that is asked by a lot of people previously. We started analyzing this, then we started providing some of the free resources for you, which is an out of a scope for this particular program, because this is a purely an MLOps program. So here we don't teach here we don't teach, let's say, Python programming or data science, for an example. But what we have done from the past previous batches, we started providing free resources where you can able to learn Python, or maybe even if you're interested, you can learn basics of data science. That would be more enough to get started with this particular program. Saying that, now let's move on to the very interesting slide. Obviously, we are talking about numbers. Okay, you might be a working professional somewhere. You might be, let's say, you might be having a 2 to 3 years of experience. You might be having 4. You might be having a 15 years of experience. So let us try to understand the numbers. Can you able to get a good salary in MLOps industry? Here we go. So let's get started. So there is no doubt about it. AI industry is in a boom, and again, every industry across this globe, they are trying to implement AI into their organization. So just try to imagine that. So as we discussed, right, if you remember that we discussed in a slide where I'm talking about the current state of machine learning in every organization. Last 10 years ago, every organization across the globe, they are building models, but they are not planning for productionizing. They're not deploying it. But today we talk more about AI. Everyone wants to use AI today. And again, what does that mean? So that means every organizations across this globe, they started productionizing their AI. It can be the Gen AI, large language models that you were talking about, or it can be any classical machine learning models that you want to deploy to the production. But as a question is, what makes AI to the production? Obviously, when you have a solid automation, you can bring any AI to the production. But who builds that solid automation? MLOps engineers. Here we go. Let's take a look how MLOps engineers' salary ranges looks like. So here is a quick statistic says an average salary for someone who has a 2 to 3 years of experience. I'm talking about someone who has 2 to 3 years of experience. I'm not talking about someone who has 15 years of experience. Let's see what is an average salary of someone who has a 2 to 3 years of experience. In US, it starts from $165,000 per annum. It's a huge number. Obviously, US is huge number. What US market is, obviously it's big. But now let's take a look. Let's see what we get in India. For an example, like consider that you might be a professional who is from India. According to sixfigure.com, you can go ahead and cross-verify this by yourself. So after verifying 97 verified salary profiles, an average salary for MLOps engineers in India, it starts from 35.1 lakh in India. Obviously, let's see what this looks like last year. I'm talking about mid of last year. It is 26.6 lakh, and it has been skyrocketed today because this year is going. You will see the lot of AIs will be coming to the production. So, and again, consider that you might be coming from let's say different years of experience. Consider that you might be having 8, you might be having 10, or you might be having 15 years of experience. You'd be lying in this particular salary brackets. So consider that you can see most amount of the percentage of people should be getting 10 to 20 lakhs. So we can say they might be coming between, let's say, the 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of experience. And then we are talking about someone who has let's say you might be falling under more than 5 plus or 15 plus years of experience. Let's talk about the peoples who would be what we are looking into the lead positions in MLOps. Like let's say, for example, someone who is working in a MLOps lead, MLOps architect kind of a positions, they would be lying in a salary bracket of 30 to 50 lakhs or even more than that, right? So saying that, there is no doubt about it. As we are discussing about the ML job vacancy trends, are what we're talking about, the AI jobs vacancy trends are skyrocketing, right? So let's say we are talking about let's say the more innovation that's happening in AI, and again they need more engineers or more MLOps engineers who can able to help them to deliver their models to the production, for an example, right? So tell me one thing, for an example, when I usually talk to the working professionals, see, they do solidly ask this particular question. So do you think MLOps can be a best position? So do we have enough opportunities for an MLOps engineers to get placed in a job? As I mentioned, the data validates that. So today, a lot of organizations, they started productionizing their AI. They need an automation, people to build an automation to deliver their models to the production, basically, right? So I mean, you can also cross-verify this by yourself. So consider that you might be coming from DevOps background, you might be coming from data engineering background. Tell me the one new tool that you have heard. Okay, this is the new tool that's in a data engineering background, which is revolutionizing a data engineering industry, right? One tool in a DevOps industry, if you can able to say, one tool in your own software development industry that you can able to say. But what you continuously hear about AI, you continuously hear about the new AI tools, how it is being used in an IT sector to revolutionize some other industries or maybe some of the problems that you want to solve. So that's the power of AI. And again, every organization's needed an MLOps engineers in order to build an automation to deliver their models to the production. Okay, saying that, so now let's try to understand the speed of an innovation here. Okay, so this is the slide which is so much interesting that you need to know. Let's say consider that, let's try to understand how this particular drones could able to replace a complete industry. It has wiped a complete industry. I'm talking about industry of choppers and cameramans who is carrying a cameras for shooting a news report. It can be shooting a Hollywood movies, anything. So today you don't see this choppers and cameramans carrying a huge heavy cameras. It's been this complete industry. In just 10 years, it's got replaced by these drones. But here we go. Folks, you don't have 10 years to transform yourself to get into the AI industry. So today, AI industry is growing faster than every other industry that's outside an IT sector that I'm talking about, right? So consider that a pretty much simple example is, let's say last 5 years ago, we are talking about data science, machine learning, how to build up models, for an example. So last year, we are talking about Gen AI, we are talking about large language models, we are talking about text to image generation models, what you can build with that. We are talking about RAG systems. So this year 2025, we will be talking about more about AI agents. Next year, we will be talking about AGIs. The next year after that, we'll be talking about ASI, artificial super intelligence, right? So AI is growing pretty much faster than any other industry. You don't have a time, right? So let's say it's time for you to upgrade yourself. Okay, so here we go. This is where our program comes into the picture, the MLOps Specialization course. So we are starting our new batch starting from February 22nd. So we do have very few days left. So we have started registrations already. So let's try to understand more about our MLOps Specialization program, the interesting program, and the best program that's outside in this world in terms of MLOps. Let me validate that. Okay, let's try to understand. We are starting our program from February 22nd. So this is a 12 weekends program. Otherwise, we are talking about 3 months program it is, 12 weekends solidly. So our program would be happening on every weekends, that is every weekend from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. IST. Let's say in case if you're joining from EST time zone, your time would be 8:30 to 12:30 p.m. Or consider you are from CET time zone, it will be 2:30 to 6:30. Okay, let's get into that. Let's try to understand the program workflow here. So this is how it's going to work. So this MLOps specialization program is an 100% live hands-on program. Okay, so what do you mean by that? So every weekend, 7 to 11 p.m. IST, we'll be having a live sessions. That is 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday. Followed by that, every Monday, you'll be receiving an access to the recordings of a live session that you attend. And even on weekdays, we do have a program. We call it as debugging sessions. At least 2 to 3 debugging sessions we would be having in a week. What is this debugging sessions? So consider that during a live sessions, there are 28 real-time projects that you would be building in our program. So consider that if you have any bugs or questions you couldn't able to resolve it during a live sessions, you can join the debugging sessions. And this debugging sessions would be 101. So that means you can able to join, you get more personal time with me, you can discuss so much, right? So that's going to be awesome. And again, when we talk about debugging sessions, we do have something called fixed debugging sessions and unfixed debugging sessions. So fixed debugging sessions would be happening on 2 to 3 debugging sessions a week, but unfixed debugging sessions, consider that you might be not available around the fixed debugging time that we have allocated, but in that particular perspective, you can go ahead and join any time that you want on a mutual understanding between you and me. So that's how it's going to work. Okay, so let's get started without wasting much of a time. Let's go ahead and try to explore this particular program. It's going to be awesome. So let's say when I'm talking about the MLOps specialization course, as we described, this is a multi-cloud and open source course. We would be covering AWS, Azure, GCP, including open source tools in this particular program. So it's 100 hours of live sessions. There are more than 50 plus hands-on labs. And as I mentioned, there are 28 real-time projects that we will be building in this particular program. So when I'm talking about 28 real-time projects, from this 28, around 19 to 20 projects that you will be building it during the live session itself. So this 19 to 20 projects, which is also inclusive of this level 4 architecture projects or level 3 and level 2 architecture projects. So we discussed about what is this level 4 architecture projects, which are perfect projects to be mentioned on your resumes. So then comes 101 debugging sessions. Okay, so without wasting up much of our time, let's go ahead and let's now explore the pricing structure that we got for this particular program. Okay, here we go. Let's get started. Okay, so here we go. So we do have 3 different pricing structures, not one. We do have 3 different pricing structures. First, let me just go ahead and describe what's the pricing structure that we got for INR. So why do we have 3 different pricing structures? Okay, it's going to be awesome. Let's discuss that. So we do have 3 different pricing structure. That means we do have 3 different plans. We call it as basic plan, advanced plan, and advanced plus plan. Let's get started. Okay, here's our first plan, which we call it as basic plan. Then comes an advanced plan, and then comes an advanced plus plan. So okay, here we go. Why we have those 3 different pricing plans? Let me just try to describe it. And again, so which plan does really fit for you? Let me just also explain that. Okay, so now let us get into our basic plan. Let's try to understand how the basic plan works. So basic plan costs around 42,999 in Indian rupees. Okay, so now let's talk about what you get in a basic plan. So when it comes to a basic plan, you can able to attend the live sessions. As I mentioned, 100 hours of live session. You will get access to the recordings. You'll be having an access to attending a debugging sessions, which is 101. So a basic plan is also inclusive. Basic plan is also included in advanced and advanced plus plan. That means you have an access to live session, access to the recordings in all the 3 different plans. Okay, so you'll be also getting additional free resources as I mentioned and community support. Okay, saying that, now let's try to understand what we provide in advanced plan and how it is different than basic plan. Okay, so here comes in advanced or maybe in advanced plus plan, you get a premium support features from us. So what do you mean by that? So let's get started. Here comes the premium support features that we offer. The first feature, it's called bonus reattendance opportunity. So what is this bonus reattendance opportunity? So consider that 100%, I mean, all the folks who take over programs are working professionals. This, we do see very less students who might be joining this particular program. So mostly you will see 100% the working professionals would be joining this particular program. Obviously, as you are working, you're busy and you're making your time to upskill your skills, right? At the end of the day, what happens? Sometimes few working professionals, they miss few weekends of live session due to their busy working schedule. So at the end of the day, you put in your time and investment here. ultimately everyone would like to take an 100% from this particular program. There's no doubt about it, right? So how do we make sure that you get an 100% value from this particular program? This is where bonus reattendance opportunities comes into the picture. So it's nothing but you sign up once and you can able to take our program twice. So consider that you're joining our February batch, which we are starting from February 22nd. Even after you completing our February batch, you can rejoin our June batch again for free of cost. There's no further registration is needed. You will be automatically added. So that means you'll be getting twice the chance to take a live sessions. So that means you don't miss out anything from this particular program. Okay. So then comes the very important part in advanced plan is a 6 months of technical job support with resume preparation. So what is this 6 months of technical job support with resume preparation? Let me just give you a quick clarity on it. So this is where we play a very important role. Okay. So let's go to the black screen. Let's try to understand. So what is this 6 months of technical job support? So here we are talking about advanced and advanced plus. So let's say we are talking about advanced or advanced plus. When you take an advanced plan, you get 6 months of technical job support. And when it comes to advanced plus plan, you get 1 year of job support. Let's say we are talking about 6 to 12 months of job support. So what is this technical job support? How you can get benefited from this? Here comes the more added value from our side. So let's say we can able to split this 6 to 12 months technical job support into 3 different steps. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. So what is this the first step? Let's talk about resume preparation, for example. So what do we do in a resume preparation? So consider that. So here first we sit and understand who exactly you are. I mean, so you might be coming from data engineering, DevOps background, software engineering. You can be coming from any different IT sector. So consider that you are trying to transform yourself into MLOps engineering job role. How does your resume should look like? We help you in optimizing this particular resume. So technically, we will help you in biasing that particular resume. If someone checks your resume, it should say that you are a MLOps engineer. So consider that a resume of a person who has a 2 to 3 years of experience, or resume of a person who has more than 10 years of experience would look completely different. How do you come up with that solid resume? We help you in optimizing this particular resumes. So there are resume preparation sessions that will be conducted one-on-one based on your availability. We sit and optimize that. So followed by that, the second step, here we call it as a job portals optimizations. So what do you mean by job portals optimizations? So consider that we make sure that you get a good calls from the organizations. We help you in optimizing your LinkedIn, Naukri, or any job portal that you might be having in your country, for an example, to make sure that, okay, you're getting a good calls for the interview. Okay, so the third step is the most important step, we would say. We call it as a JD decoding sessions, basically. So what is this JD decoding sessions? This is where we play very important role. We spend more time with the peoples. So what is this JD decoding sessions? Let's assume you folks have an interview day after tomorrow, for an example. So before you going ahead and attending your technical round of interview, you will be coming to us, you will be bringing your own JD, and we will sit for a technical discussion. So consider that there might be an organization who is looking for an AWS with Dockers and Kubernetes, or for another participants, you might be looking for, the organization might be looking for Azure with Dockers, or maybe MLflow, for an example, right? So we help you in decoding this particular JD. So what kind of a questions they're going to ask you in terms of Dockers or MLflow, or in terms of Azure. So how are you going to answer the scenario based questions, for an example? And more importantly, consider that if you attend any kind of an interview, they're definitely going to ask this particular question. So tell me, what's your contribution towards a previous organization in the project, in an MLOps project that you have done? So how are you going to narrate you that particular story, right? We help you in building that particular story, right? So maybe the story that you want to say, if you are at 2 years of experience, would be different. And the story that you're going to mention, if you have more than 10 plus years of experience, the expertise will differ here. So we help you in optimizing this particular JDs. In order to decode this particular JDs, and that actually helps you in clearing any technical round of interview. So this is how you can able to use this JD decoding sessions. Followed by that, you can also use this technical job support. Consider that you already have a job, you're working. So consider that you stuck somewhere, you need some assistance, for an example, you need some consulting, for an example, maybe you need some sample code to get started, you need some brainstorming, etc. You can also use this technical job support for that particular reason. Okay, saying that, this is how an advanced plan would work like. So then if we go to the topmost plan, which we call it as advanced plus plan, so this is where you get an even more premium support features. So you get here, instead of 6 months support, you get 1 year support. And then comes the one difference over here. It's called instant access to recordings. So consider that our program is 3 months long, and right now we are still in a January. We will be starting our program in February. That means you don't need to wait solidly 4 months to complete this particular program. So what you can do, you can get started with this particular program in next 24 hours. Yes, it is possible. So what we do, we share an access to our previous batch recordings. That means we done with our previous batch last weekend. You get an access to this recording immediately. That means you can get started with any topic, any module immediately. And parallelly, you can start attending the live sessions with us for both the batches. So this is how the different pricing plans works. And we do have an EMI, a minimal rate EMI, and all the plans to get started. We'll discuss further. So consider that if you're someone joining from, let's say, not from India. So if you want to take a look on a pricing in USD, this is how it's going to look like. So your basic plan would be starting from $624, and your advanced plan would be starting from $674, and an advanced plus plan would be starting from $774 with the same exact features. Okay. Saying that, I would like to really appreciate for your patience to, stay connected with this demo till now, and especially for the people who stay connected till end of this particular demo session. Here comes a surprise, and especially this surprise will be known only for the people who stayed back. Okay, so what do you mean by surprise? In order to make sure that you have stayed till end of this particular program, so we are actually announcing some of the amazing offers here. I mean, this is a kind of a ritual, folks, what we do. I mean, in every new batch that we conduct, we give this initial offers for the first 10 registrations. We call it as a free upgradation. We call it as a free upgradation. So what is this free upgrade, right? So this free upgradation, as I mentioned, it's only for the first 10 registrations, but right now we have only 5 registrations because the folks who call us initially, we reveal these offers for them, and these offers are available till 2nd of February. So what is this free upgradation? So let's go back and let's quickly understand that. So obviously, most of you folks, I know that you might be interested in opting for advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, right? But here we go. So are you interested in advanced plan, or let's consider that, are you interested in advanced plus plan? A topmost plan, you can get started immediately with our recordings. You can attend 2 batches of live sessions, but here it costs us $51,999. Or let's say you're interested in advanced plan, which is costing $45,999. Simple. Don't register for advanced or advanced plus plan. Okay, here how it works. So all you need to do, consider that, okay, are you interested in, let's say, are you interested in advanced plan for an example? All you need to do, you go ahead and register for a basic plan. So that's all you need to do. You need to go ahead and register for a basic plan, which is costing $42,999. And what we will be doing, we will be upgrading you to advanced plan, which is costing $45,999. So where you'd be saving around 3,000 rupees on a registration. So you register for basic, you get advanced. So, and again, we have an EMI option starting from 1,700 to 2,000 rupees on your debit cards and credit cards. And especially for this free upgradation offer, we have only 5 seats left, and this is strictly till 2nd of February only. The same thing applies. Consider that, okay, you are someone looking for advanced plus plan, which is costing $51,999. Don't register for advanced plus plan. All you need to do, go ahead and register for advanced plan, which is costing around $45,999, and we will be upgrading you to the topmost plan, which is costing around $51,999. So where you can save around 6,000 rupees on a registration. Okay, isn't it awesome? Yes. So please go ahead and start your registrations, where you can able to get this offers instantly, and you can get started with our program. Okay, and again, so most importantly, I do recommend to check our testimonials from our previous batch participants. Obviously, our participants talks for us. So obviously, you can able to see the different range of peoples who are coming from a complete non-technical background. You will see the stories, how they have transformed into MLOps. People's coming from, let's say, a solid 10 or 15 years of experience, how they have cracked the interviews, how now they are working in a lead positions in MLOps. Please go ahead and check out testimonials. I will share you a PDF where you can find everything. We will also discuss an awesome curriculum that we have put it. So we will start in next few minutes. And why do you think Cyton Technologies is the best people's to conduct this particular program? Why you should able to care? So this is not our first batch. This is solidly around 14th or 15th batch that we are conducting in MLOps Specialization program. And again, so we are based out of India. We are supported by Department of Science and Technology. We are incubated in PSG Step Coimbatore, and we have represented ourselves in multiple international stages. It can be a best FKCCI award for our startups. We are part of AWS Activate program. And again, so we are into multiple phases. So we are into both corporate trainings as well as a retail training that you're attending. So corporate training, we have worked with banks like Royal Bank of Scotland, Minion Labs in Bangalore, some other organizations in UK. We helped organizations to transform into the cloud, upskill in data science and MLOps, etc. So please go ahead, check out testimonials, then you take an action, so you'll get some better clarity how what people's really talks about us. So that makes more sense. Okay, saying that, without wasting a much of a time, I would like to reveal what is the curriculum that we got. We have a very powerful curriculum that we have put. This is the best curriculum that's available in this internet, in this world. Let's get started. Okay, here we go. So here is the PDF, which I will be also sharing it in your chat windows. You can go ahead and download this particular PDF, or when at the time of you watching a demo, you can able to also download this PDFs in our websites. So let's get started. Okay, so let me just quickly get into the curriculum. Okay, let's get started. So there are totally 15 modules, folks, in this particular program. 15 modules. Let's get a quick clarity on what does this curriculum looks like. Believe me, this is a robust curriculum that is available in this entire world of where you can learn MLOps. So let's get started. Our module number 1 is Introduction to MLOps. I mean, this is where we'll be diving deep into the world of MLOps understanding. So consider that again, we'll be going ahead and discussing about MLOps challenges, the challenges in operationalizing any kind of an AI to the production. So then comes here, we go ahead and discuss different kind of operations. So today we discussed about MLOps or DevOps, but there are different kind of ops here. So what is this DevOps? What is this AI ops? What is this model ops? What is this LLM ops? What is this FM ops, which we call it as foundation model operations, or what is this GitOps? We'll be exploring that. The most interesting part in this entire module number 1 is basically the CI/CD and production case study. So what we will be doing, we'll be taking 5 different organizations. We will try to analyze how they have implemented a CI/CD strategies in order to deploy their models to the production. Okay, so then comes a module number 2, or overview of ML and MLOps stages. So this is where we'll be diving into the different stages of MLOps, especially talking about versioning a data code model, feature and containers, the testings that we conduct in MLOps, automated CI/CD, reproducibility, deployment and monitoring. Followed by that, so this is where we will be going ahead and exploring the MLOps architectures. So how does an open source architecture looks like, how you can get started with Kubeflow, Apache Airflow, MLflow, Metaflow, ZenML, CML, etc. And then comes, we'll be also exploring what cloud like AWS, Azure, GCP offers in terms of getting started with an end-to-end level 4 architecture projects. For an example, we'll be exploring that in module number 2. So followed by that, in a module number 3, here we will be getting started with Git essentials for MLOps practitioners. So this is where the hands-on will be starting in this particular program. So this is where we will be getting started with the Git completely from the scratch. You'll be started working with Git based commands, Git CLIs. We'll be getting started with a project understanding, let's say the Git based commands, branching, merging, pushing your code, working with remote repositories, all those stuff. So then comes a module number 4, a CI/CD strategies for AWS, Azure, GCP, and including open source tools like GitHub Actions. Okay, so what is this? So CI/CD strategies, this is where we will be exploring a DevOps tools on top of all the clouds, including open source tools. So we'll be getting started with DevOps on all the clouds, getting started with AWS DevOps, understanding all the DevOps tools like code commit, code build in AWS, and we'll be building a one end-to-end project, understanding how DevOps pipelines work. So followed by that, we'll be exploring GCP DevOps, understanding all the GCP DevOps tools that's available on GCP cloud, and building a one project, understanding the end-to-end how we can build the DevOps pipelines on top of GCP. So followed by that, understanding how Azure DevOps work, understanding how the complete Azure DevOps suite, and here we'll be exploring Azure DevOps as a concept of infrastructure as a code with Azure DevOps, and building a one end-to-end DevOps pipeline on top of Azure DevOps to understand that concepts. So then comes GitHub Actions, which is an open source tool that you can able to use, understanding how you can able to use GitHub Actions through an ML, which I'm talking about infrastructure as a code. So building a one end-to-end end-to-end DevOps pipeline to understand how GitHub Actions works. Okay, so then comes the interesting module, the module number 5, Dockers and Kubernetes. Obviously, we will be getting started with Dockers and Kubernetes from the scratch. and we will be building a multiple projects across Dockers and Kubernetes. So we will be getting started with understanding how to Dockerize a simple Node.js application, followed by that understanding how to Dockerize a machine learning model, how to deploy it on a Docker infrastructure. So then comes deploying a complete end-to-end ML models with a Docker Compass. So followed by that, getting started with Kubernetes and understanding the complete Kubernetes workflow and deploying a machine learning models on a Kubernetes infrastructure. Followed by that, module number 6 is again Kubernetes module. So we'll be discussing about Kubernetes deployment strategies. So here we'll be understanding how to explore or how to work with a production Kubernetes clusters, which I'm talking about a cloud. So AWS has EKS, Azure has AKS, GCP has GKE. We'll be exploring how to get started with how to create a production Kubernetes cluster, and we'll be also learning how to deploy machine learning models to that. So followed by that, then comes a module number 7, high level overview of model management tools. So this is where we'll be discussing about the high level tools, understanding data versioning, code versioning, experiment tracking, model registries, model monitoring, etc. So here, especially as part of an open source tool, we'll be getting started with MLflow. Obviously, there are 2 projects. The first project, you'll be understanding how to deploy an MLflow stack on a cloud. Then comes how to use that MLflow stack to build, train, deploy your machine learning models. Followed by that, the another open source tool that we'll be exploring is DVC, which stands for data versioning tool for versioning a data. We'll be exploring how to version a data, how to store it in the cloud, how to pull that back, etc. Then comes module number 8. We do have a dedicated module for feature stores that we discussed. We'll be exploring all the different kind of feature stores that's available, and we'll be using the open source Feast, very famous feature store, and we'll be building an online or offline feature store. It's a complete end-to-end project. So then comes module number 9 is a real beast. So module number 9, where you'll be diving deep into the MLOps cloud services on top of AWS, Azure, and GCP. Folks, this is where we'll be building the level 4 architecture project that I mentioned. So we'll be exploring the powerful tools that's outside in this world. For an example, on top of AWS, we'll be exploring Amazon SageMaker or Amazon SageMaker Studio. You'll be learning how to deploy an end-to-end MLOps pipelines using the SageMaker Studio, which is a level 4 architecture project. Then comes on top of GCP, we'll be exploring something called Vertex AI. You'll be learning how to build a complete end-to-end a level 4 architecture project by using Vertex AI. So followed by that, we'll be exploring Azure MLOps, we'll be exploring the Azure Machine Learning Studio, and you'll be learning how to deploy a complete end-to-end MLOps version 2 architecture on top of Azure Machine Learning workspace. So followed by that, then comes module number 10, Kubeflow. Obviously, the powerful, the open source tool that's available in the market. So consider if you're an organization who's like to run everything open source, if you want to use open source tools, here comes a Kubeflow, which is a framework that runs on top of Kubernetes. We'll be exploring Kubeflow and deploying a complete, there are 2 projects here, deploying a Kubeflow stack, followed by that creating an end-to-end ML pipelines on top of it. Then comes module number 11 is a new module, understanding how you can use MLOps for LLMs, what we call it as LLM ops, and again for Gen AI. Here you will be exploring how MLOps can work for delivering any kind of a large language models or Gen AI models, and we'll be also showing a real-time demo over there. So followed by that, module number 12, we are talking about understanding model monitoring on top of AWS, GCP, and Azure. We'll be exploring the different SDKs, what this cloud platforms offers. And here we'll be picking any one of a cloud, and we'll be building a complete end-to-end model monitoring job to monitor the drift, issues in your model, biases in your model, etc. So then comes module number 13. So as I mentioned, this program is not limited to the cloud or open source tools. We will be also exploring the commercial tools that's outside in the market, and we'll be also giving a one demo on top of it. So then comes module number 14, post-deployment challenges. So this is where we'll be exploring what are the challenges that you'll be facing post-deployment of your machine learning models. So this is where we'll be exploring the open source tool, which is called Evidently AI, for monitoring your data quality and the drift in your model. So then comes the final module, the module number 15. So we do have 15 modules, totally 14 modules. From module number 1 to module number 14 will be covered through our live sessions. Module number 15 is a self-paced videos. Module number 15 is a new addition for this particular batch. So what is module number 15? Module number 15, we have categorized it as a may know topics. Everything from module number 1 to 14 is a must know topics for you to get into the industry. Module number 15, we would categorize as a may know topics, which you can start learning through our self-paced videos. Again, here we'll be exploring open source tools like Jenkins, which is again an alternative of any DevOps tools that is available in the cloud. So here you will be exploring how Jenkins works completely, and here you will be building 2 projects to understand Jenkins. The first, you'll be learning how to build a simple Python application. Then comes using Jenkins to build a complete end-to-end ML pipelines. So here we will be using a combinations of different tools. Using Jenkins as CI/CD, we'll be using Dockers where our models will be building, and we'll be using MLflow for registering the models. It's a robust project, you don't want to miss. Then comes an Apache Airflow. So we'll be also exploring Apache Airflow from the scratch, and again there are 2 projects will be built on top of it. So Apache Airflow is traditionally built for building a data pipelines. The first project you'll be understanding how to create an ETL scheduled data pipelines. Followed by that, we'll be learning how to use Apache Airflow to schedule an end-to-end ML pipelines on top of Apache Airflow. So then comes, we will be also exploring the cloud-based production Kubernetes clusters. You'll be exploring GKE, and you'll be learning how to deploy a model to it. You'll be exploring Azure Kubernetes servers. You'll be exploring how to deploy a machine learning model to it. So followed by that, we will be also covering Terraform basics here, understanding how to work with infrastructure as a code, how to deploy an infrastructure by writing a script. There are 2 projects that you will be building in order to learn how to deploy the infrastructure. Followed by that, then comes Argo Workflow. Argo Workflow or Argo CD, we are talking about as an alternative for Kubeflow that we discussed. So Argo Workflow also you'll be exploring as part of module number 15. You'll be also learning how to build an end-to-end ML pipelines, or scheduled pipelines through Argo Workflow. So this is the best powerful curriculum that we have. And if you scroll down, these are the skills that you're going to master, the skills that you can possibly add on top of your resumes. So then comes the tools that you will be mastering in this particular program. There's a lot of tools. And you can also explore the pricing structure that we have in this entire program. You can check the pricing structure in INR, you can check the pricing structure in USD. So followed by that, you can check the program features. And if you further scroll down, you can check the same testimonials. I would recommend you folks to go ahead and check this testimonials, folks. So, and people who have published their testimonials into the LinkedIn, you can also try to approach based on their LinkedIn profile names. You can talk to them in case if they are going to available, if they are available. So you can go ahead and have a conversation with them. So yeah, go ahead and check this particular curriculum. So let me just go ahead and share this particular curriculum, the PDF to a chat window. You can go ahead and download this particular PDF in a chat window, or go ahead and download the PDFs in a website. Okay, so saying that, so this is the best curriculum that we have put it in this put it for this entire program. And again, as we discussed, this offers are only till February 2nd. Don't miss this offers. And again, this is available only for first 5 registrations only. Don't miss this opportunity. Saying that, now let me just go back to the cloud. Let's see whether my model is deployed to the production or not, and let's have a quick demo. Okay, so now let us go ahead and check whether my endpoint, as I mentioned, it has got deployed or not. So here we go. So I'm back to my Amazon SageMaker Studio console. So obviously there are a lot of things happening, folks. I mean, this kind of a level 4 architecture project, it takes at least, let's say 6 to 8 hours to build. There's a lot of things that is happening in between. I'm just going showing actually the symptoms of what's really happening, starting from this orchestration, the block diagrams that I showed you, how pipelines are running. So now you can see the console where I have deployed the models to the real-time endpoint, but you can deploy the models to different scenarios. I mean, you can deploy to the batch, Dockers, and Kubernetes. I have showing you how to after model deployed to the real-time endpoint. You can see this is the model that I've deployed, which is called AWS MLOps Oct, and it's in service. That means it's actually running in a production right now, or in different stages that we're talking about. So now this is the model. So let me just quickly go ahead and show you, and you can see it's actually running on a machine called ml.m5.large, which is a kind of a CPU-based machine. And as I mentioned, this is an Abalone model, which we can able to use to predict an age of an Abalone. And here is a data set. This is my incoming customer data set where he would be inputting in order to generate an age of an Abalone. So this is the data set, which is form of a libsvm format. So now there is a test inference option, which is a built-in option within, let's say, Amazon SageMaker Studio. We can quickly go ahead and test the model, which is running in a production or a different stages that you do have. So here is my input data set.
all I need to do, just go ahead and click submit. Click on the send request button. That's it. Here comes the magic. You can able to see the body which got printed towards the right side of my screen. You can see in a body, you have an age of an abalone, which says 8.00. That's an age of an abalone. So here we go. Isn't it awesome? I'm actually invoking a model which is actually running in a production. Okay. So this is how it works. Similarly, you'll be learning how to create this end-to-end MLOps pipeline, which is a level 4 architecture projects from the scratch on your own screen, on your own accounts, on top of AWS, Azure, GCP, including open source tools. Okay, so please don't miss the particular program. We are running this offers till 2nd of February itself. So please go ahead and start answering your questions. Okay, go ahead, start answering questions. I'm going to just check the chat window. Please go ahead and unmute your mics and let's go ahead and access you can go ahead and start talking to me. Okay, I'm going to check in the meantime. You ask me a question. I will go ahead and check in the chat window to have any questions. Okay, here we go. Give me a sec. Okay, so here we have Prathamesh. He's asking a question. So what about the cloud access when we are getting started with this particular program? Okay, so do I need to purchase any cloud subscription? Definitely not. So consider that when we're talking about cloud access, folks, let's say we are talking about any different clouds. It can be, let's say AWS, Azure, or GCP. All these clouds, they provide what we call it as a free trial. So that means there's no need for you to pay a monthly subscription for these cloud platforms. So they would be providing a free trial for a 1 year. So for an example, AWS provides a free trial for 1 year. GCP and Azure, they provides free credits for us to get started. So this credits and free trial would be more than enough for us to explore in this particular program. And that would be fair enough even after completing the program if you want to do a practice. Okay, so this is about the credits. So I believe I answered your question. So please go ahead if you have any questions, go ahead and mentioning that in the chat window or unmute your mic and let's get started. So I have also shared you the registration links. If you go ahead and click on the registration links, so you'll be redirected to a page which will look like this. Let me just also give a quick tour on that. Okay, here we go. There's another question from Rajesh. He's asking a question. What about the EMI options if I want to start purchasing this program? Okay, so now let me just go ahead and show you where is this EMI option. As I mentioned, Rajesh, let's say you'd be getting an EMI option starting from minimum of 3 months to maximum of 24 months. We have an EMI options on your credit cards and debit cards. We support a few debit cards. And again, when it comes to the debit cards, your bank has to provide an eligibility for you to purchase the debit card EMI. Okay, so here we go. So this is the registration page that you'd be landing in. You can explore all the details in this particular program, starting from the curriculum on each of modules and the project that we offer, the tools that we cover. You can also watch the demo of our previous classes. You can check more about the trainer. Obviously it's me. So you can talk to me, you can send, you can just go ahead and say, let's talk and send the message so we can have a conversation. I would recommend, please go ahead and make a call. So if you go ahead and start calling me in the same number that you can able to find in this poster, you can directly call the trainer. Let's have a conversation if you have more questions to ask, if you need some more consultation before to register for this particular program. And if you further scroll down, you can check the testimonials. I would recommend you to go ahead and check the testimonials. Check the testimonial of an Arsha. He got 3 different offers. See how you could able to make it. Check the data scientist from UK, what he says. So check what the ISRO ex-scientist has to say about our program. He's currently working in MLOps role. And the most recommended testimonial would be a Deepali's testimonial. So what I will give a quick insight about Deepali. So Deepali is not coming from an IT background like you folks. She is coming from a complete non-IT background. She's actually a mechanical engineer. That's a reality. And she did work as a mechanical design engineer. She worked as a digital marketing engineer. She's nowhere from IT background, but she has a dream of getting into data science. But here and there, she started learning data science and she got a job in a startup, but she's not working as a data scientist, but she is more focused on the deployment of models over there, but she is not implementing a full-fledged MLOps. So, and again, the salaries are not up to the industry standards. And she started joining our MLOps specialization program. Obviously, after completing this particular program, she could be able to crack a job within 2 to 2.5 months. Obviously, it's a big achievement for us. why am I saying it's a big achievement? Because we do have other folks here, because obviously we do have a senior folks who is getting a 2x or 3x salaries. We have a data scientist, senior data scientist who completed this particular program. His name is Sandeep, but he got an 100% hike because he is working as a both MLOps and a senior data scientist right now as a lead position. But obviously we are proud of it, but we are more proud of Deepali's testimonial, because if we can able to help people like Deepali to transform into AI industry, especially MLOps, why can't you do it? Why can't DevOps engineers? Why can't data engineers? Why can't someone from cloud experience can do it, right? So that's a magic. So please go ahead and check these testimonials. Go ahead and if you would like to contact the peoples on the LinkedIn, do that. See if they are talking to us. Just you can cross verify with them. So click on this register now button. You can go ahead and start filling the information about you. So I will just go ahead and mention my details. Okay, here we go, my phone number, and go ahead and click next. So now you'll be redirected to the payment page. So you'd be having an option to pick, either you are from in India, you can just pick an Indian participants tickets. And if you're from international, so if you want to purchase this particular program in USD, you have in prices in USD. So consider that if you're interested in advanced plan, that means if you go ahead and purchase an advanced plan, so now you'd be upgraded to advanced plus plan. So quickly go ahead and click pay now button. And here you can just go ahead and mention your email address and phone number, click pay now, and you'd be redirecting to an option. So we are using a Razorpay, which is we are a trusted partners on top of Razorpay. We are verified business on top of Razorpay. So here you can go ahead and pick any kind of a payment method you want to go for. UPI option, we do have an option. So consider that, as you mentioned, consider that you want to go for an EMI option. You can go ahead and check the interest rates on for your credit cards and debit cards. So we support all the major debit cards. Let's say you're interested in HDFC, go ahead and check the interest rates. And as I mentioned, we offer minimum of 3 months to maximum of 24 months. Okay, so please go ahead and check these details. So let's see what is the next question, what you have in the chat window. So okay, so here we go. So what about the person called the person is Anthony. He's asking a question. So what about the labs? What kind of a projects that we're going to build? Okay, here we go. So I did answer this particular question. Let me just go ahead and brief it once again for John once again. Okay, here we go, John. So when I'm talking about the projects, there are more than 28 real-time projects that we will be building throughout this particular program. Apart from this 19 to 20 projects that we will be building it during a live session itself. This projects will be inclusive of level 4 architecture projects and level 3 architecture projects. I would recommend you to go ahead and download the PDF through the link that we have shared, so you can able to know what project that we'll be building in each and every module. So we have mentioned that clearly in a project title, so what we'll be building. So there are hands-on labs, including the project that we'll be building. And 100%, all this 19 to 20 projects that I'm talking about, you will be building it along with me during the live sessions actually. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. Let's see if you have any other questions, folks. Please go ahead and check and answer. Let me just answer that. So here we have, let's say Geeta is asking a question. So do I need to have a Python expertise to join this particular program? Definitely not. So you don't need a Python expertise. As I mentioned previously, if you are a data scientist, you are the one who need a Python expertise. But obviously having a Python basics would work, help for you, Geeta. So consider that, as I mentioned, there are free resources that we would be providing that would help you to get inside, this particular program, where you can able to explore the Python basics over there. So as I mentioned, so consider that there is no need for you to become a data scientist. There is no need for you to have a data science knowledge to join the MLOps particular program. You can be coming from software engineering background. You have some minimum basics of Python. So yeah, you can get started with this particular program. There's no doubt about it. Okay. So please go ahead and let me know if you have any other questions. Go ahead and mention that. Okay. So here comes Pradeep is asking a question. There are too many tools that we will be learning from this particular program. How to understand? So will that be a confusing for us? Definitely not. Okay, so this is how it works. It's a great question that has been asked by Pradeep. So let's go back. Okay, so let's try to explore here. So consider that we will be discussing about the different kind of CI/CD tools that's available in the cloud platform. So when I'm talking about CI/CD tools, at the end of the day, DevOps is DevOps, whether you run it on top of AWS or Azure GCP. So consider that the way CI/CD tools works on every cloud platform would be exactly same, but the kind of a UI they have, the kind of a features they have, it's going to be different. Consider that when it comes to AWS, we have something called AWS Code Pipelines, which is a CI/CD tool. When it comes to Azure, we say Azure Pipelines, which is a CI/CD tool. When it comes to GCP, we say
cloud build, which is a CI/CD tool. The functionality of the CI/CD tools are exactly same. At the end of the day, they are helpful for you to go ahead and deliver your applications to the production. And again, in all the cloud platforms, they work it in the same exact way. So that's how it's going to work. So including, let's say, a GitHub Actions for an example, right? So when we're talking about, again, Dockers and Kubernetes and ultimate. So let's say when I'm talking about Dockers, and again, when it comes to Amazon AKS or Azure AKS or Google Kubernetes engine. So Kubernetes or Dockers is exactly same everywhere. So consider that we will be learning Kubernetes, and you'll be exploring how to work with Kubernetes CLI, how to create a pods, how to create services, how to deploy a machine learning model. So the kind of a Kubernetes CLI, the command line interface that you're going to create over there, the same command line interface that you'd be using on top of Azure AKS or AWS EKS or Google Kubernetes engine. There's no different CLI, there's no different Kubernetes over there. So it's a different tool and different features. That's what exactly you'd be exploring. That same thing applies for the open source tools. So that's how it's going to work. Okay. Saying that, so please go ahead and ask your questions, folks. Let's say if you have any further questions, let me just go ahead and answer that. Okay, so I'm going to spare a few more minutes. If you have any further questions, please go ahead and mention that in the chat window, and please don't miss this offers. We are running this offers till 2nd of February only. That means you can go ahead and register for, let's say, basic plan, you'd be upgraded to advanced plan, or let's say you go ahead and register for advanced plan, you'd be upgraded to advanced plus plan. That means you can get started in next 24 hours in this particular program. So please go ahead. Check our testimonials. Answers the most of the question for you. So let's see if I can able to play some of the testimonials here. I don't want to waste your time, folks. Please go ahead and check this testimonials by yourself. You'll get some more better clarity. So here's a Deepali's testimonial I would ask you to check. So here is the testimonials of Rahul. Explains about how this course is being benefited from.
Managing your clients and sales is easy
Quickly skip this
when you're just starting out.
Add, and let me just try to play this testimonial for you, folks. Yeah, here we go.
So maybe you can just give some idea about what is that company that you applied for, so then we can talk about the ML engineering job role, what they're asking for
this
you.
or not. I'm just
I apply for the AML role for artificial/machine learning engineer.
Okay.
So there also cloud part also there. So they require cloud part and Docker.
Okay.
So they asked me question related to Docker,
Okay.
to Kubernetes,
Mm-hmm.
and on basis of AWS they asked me the full CI/CD pipeline, how it's work, and how one question is how we stop CI/CD pipeline. What is the procedure for stopping? Is it possible manually or not?
Okay.
So that type support, or they said me how you deploy. From dev to production, how can you deploy? Such type of question they asked me that interview. So I give all the questions with the help of your teaching on this, sir.
Perfect. I'm really happy for that. Okay. So I'm really happy for that. That's good. So what's the company name that you mentioned?
So SA Technology.
SA Technology. So based out of?
In Mumbai.
Mumbai. Perfect. So you're also from Mumbai, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So now you're asking questions. So now you have a 20 days of time. Because the joining date. So you're asking, okay, can I able to apply for other job roles like MLOps engineer or something?
Yes,
definitely. Please do apply. So even if you get a better package, yes, why not, right? So you can also look for the better opportunity. So please go ahead, as you usually do, apply for those jobs and share us a job description if you need any insights on that. I'm very much happy to provide that. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
That's really awesome. And is there any other questions that you need to ask?
Okay, sir.
So purely,
now,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Now onward from tomorrow today, I apply based on my.
Hello, Rahul. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so that's why I call you regarding that. Can I call or can I apply now all full?
Okay, so you can able to check this testimonials further. So what Rahul is asking, so he got placed in a job and he has some time for waiting time for him to join the company. He's asking, okay, he has some time. Can I go ahead and apply for the few more jobs? Definitely, why not, right? So there are participants. For an example, I would recommend you to go ahead and check on Harsha's testimonial, because he got not one, he got 3 different offers in just in 45 days. Okay, that's really awesome, and he could able to pick the dream job that he is really interested in. So if that is possible for others, definitely why not? I mean, I would hardly obviously recommend go ahead and check the Dipali's testimonial. If Dipali could able to do it, you folks can able to do it. If you have more questions, so please feel free to call me, text me anytime. I'm a person, I will be available always to pick you a call. Let's talk and let me help you to transform yourself into AI, and let's conquer this AI into AI together. Okay, the future is yours. Don't lose it, and let's hope for the best. Thank you so much, folks. We are winding up our session. Have fun. Thank you so much. Bye. And we will connect in our live sessions. Please don't miss these offers. We are running these offers only till 2nd of February. Thank you so much. Bye.